Welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this second round of Shadowfax in this Let's Build series for competitive Pauper Commander. Welcome everyone who's joined us today for coming inside. If you're watching, maybe you're outside on your phone. It is beautiful outside here, but need to make sure we get that good cPDH content to you, straight to your eyes and ears. So great to be here. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. As stated before, this is actually the second attempt at Shadowfax. The first one, we're going to talk a little bit about our learning journey there, what we picked up. I'll be pulling a little bit from our experience during that first build, and we're going to be pivoting into something that I think I have a little more confidence in. This is actually the first time we've had a deck build where the final build was chasing essentially a hypothesis that didn't end up being satisfied in a positive way. So the answer to the question of the hypothesis was no. And we're going to talk about exactly what that looks like. But first and foremost, I do want to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who basically help us keep the lights on here at the Common Connoisseur. So give a shout out quickly to a couple of new patrons. I want to thank you in particular for joining. We have the Sanctuary PDH, we have Jack, Eric, and Adgan. All four of you are new patrons. Thank you so much for your patronage. And then we've got Jerry, Zach, Scooby, Chris, Mizu. We've got William, Paul, Corey, Derek, Devin, Ian, Shin Shooting Star, and Noyark. So thank you all for your contributions to this project. And I hope you're all having a great day out there. If you too are interested in joining the Patreon, let me show you exactly how to do it. So you can go right here to patreon.com/common connoisseurs, and here you can find our 5 tiers that we have, 5 different tiers of support, anything from $2 a month, like half the cup of a cost of coffee, or half the cost of a cup of coffee, as we might say instead. And then we also have a $5 and a $10 tier as well, as ways that you can find any price at your level to support what we're doing. The $10 a month does, in this case, actually come with the interfaces that I use to do live streaming, which I'll custom make for you. And we have early access to videos, voting on Let's Builds, and of course these shout outs. So if that interests you, let me know and we can get something worked out. But yeah, now with that said, we're going to move into this deck build. If you all would take a moment, if you're in the chat right now, you leave me a little comment. Let us know that the audio is coming through clear, that everything is visually looking good, and we'll kind of go from there. So our last build is actually a different deck list here. And you can see we've cleared it out completely. We don't have any cards in it. And let's take a look at the commander. We have Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, and pretty excited about this commander. It has a direct comparison with Kaalia of the Vast, which for those of you who are unfamiliar with Clay's background in cEDH, that was a deck that he was part of bringing into cEDH and was really masterful pilot of it. Now, Kaalia says Angel, Demon, or Dragon, I want to say. I think I've got all 3 of those. The same text almost. You're putting it into play, tapped and attacking. Kaalia is a little cheaper. She's got 3 colors. You're getting a wider array of different things. Maybe it's Angel too. Angel, Demon, Dragon. Shadowfax is 5 mana for a 4/4. Gives all of our horses haste, which is really mainly for Shadowfax. Shadowfax themselves has haste. They can put a creature into play with lesser power onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. One of the key nuances we want to be careful with here is that a creature that is put into play tapped and attacking does not count as having gotten an attack trigger. So things like Battle Cry don't trigger, things like Mentor, and other things like that, things that say when this creature attacks are not actually going to be triggering here. It's kind of skipping that step. So unfortunately, that does limit some of the some really excellent options that we can't play, but it's still a very powerful ability, being able to cheat creatures into play. And because it's reading their power, we can actually cheat some really big, strong stuff into play that can serve a lot of different purposes. So I'm bullish on this commander. The first attempt that we had here, we're going to go check that out. This was the first attempt. And you can see we never made it to 100 cards because the cuts were too hard. If you can look here, this curve is actually really low. Now, why is that? The initial approach I took here was very conservative, with presuming that our 5-drop was going to be vulnerable to counter spells, to removal, things of that nature, and that leaning into Shadowfax would not accomplish the goals that we wanted. And if Shadowfax isn't coming down, then the spells that we're trying to cheat into play might be stuck in our hand. And so my approach was pretty conservative. It was to say, yes, we have a top end of very powerful things we can put into play, high value things like Ivory Giant, which we can also suspend, Soul of Migration to produce a lot of flying evasive creatures, Totem Guide Heartbeast to tutor up different auras. We even have some of these Myriad creatures. Myriad does not trigger on this either, but Myriad is just good enough in this aggressive deck as an evasive beater that we would keep it. Sparktongue Dragon, Prickle Boar, Faragax Giant. These are all great things, and not to mention that every one of the Monarch and the Initiative cards, except for Crimson Fleet Commodore and the Crown Hunter Hireling, can be put into play for free off of the Shadowfax trigger. So a lot of really cool stuff to do there, but you can see that this curve was actually really low, and that was because we just wanted to play a normal Boros good stuff plan until we got to the point where we would start deploying bigger things with Shadowfax. What I'm interested in doing is actually just leaning really heavily into Shadowfax on this next build, and really trying to land big stuff into play. One of the points of tension that we also found is that white has a lot of really good resurrection spells, basically zombify effects that are 4 mana. We're returning something from the graveyard to the battlefield. And something I've been exploring lately and talking about on Twitter is that these new land cycling cards that cycle for a plains, a mountain, a swamp, a forest, an island, these plane cycling cards are really, really phenomenal, I think, and I'm actually doing active testing with it, particularly in black around this, but white has something similar that makes it good. It's actually even better there. And what that is these cycling cards, we can use them early to get our lands. We can use them as a tech piece to find things like Idyllic Grange, or we can find a Dwarven Mine, which of all the lands are maybe like the lowest impact of them. However, Idyllic Grange does give us an additional power for Shadowfax, which allows us to put in slightly bigger things, like maybe we put in a Crown Hunter Hireling or something of that effect. The other thing that they do is that when we flood out or when we're in the late game and we draw them, we can just cast them. And these cycling creatures are really, really big. So let's take a look at what we've got. We've got creature, type creature, O. Let's do parentheses O : plains cycling, or O mountain cycling. And what we're going to see here is 2 cards in particular that are exceptionally good in this deck, and that is Crag Smasher Yeti and Oliphant. Now, both of these find mountains, so what that also means is that they can fire our dual lands. We can find our dual land on turn 1 or turn 2, basically the swamp or the mountain plains lands, and we can find those up. We can, or we can find the tech pieces like Idyllic Range. Sorry, in this case it would just be the Dwarven Mine, or we can just find a land if that's all we need. Now, why are these good? Well, first of all, Crag Smasher Yeti is going to back up a creature when it enters the battlefield. If we back up Shadowfax, that means we can start putting bigger things into play permanently, as long as Shadowfax is still operational. It's also giving Shadowfax trample, which is quite nice. So this card gives us a form of evasion. It kind of has a form of haste in a sense, because it's buffing up something else that is then trampling over the top. Oliphant is even higher impact. This is a much bigger creature. It's a 6/4 for the same price, and it has trample, and whenever it attacks another target creature, you're going to get is +2/+0 and trample until end of turn, and it mountain cycles for 1 less. So Oliphant, I think in some ways the superior creature here. It's bigger, it's granting this buff every turn, which is kind of the same thing, it's just a little less toughness, and it cycles for 1 less. So these cards are going to ensure that we get off to a good start in the beginning, and then later on, if we draw them, we can cast them, or we can use our resurrection spells. Resurrection, Late to Dinner, False Defeat, Breath of Life, to put these into play and start going again. So, yeah, the concept here that we're going to be doing in this different build is we're going to be focusing on ramping up into Nahar, landing Nahar, and then using Nahar to put really powerful stuff into play for free. And yeah, that's what we're going to be going for. So yeah, let's take a switch over here to our new build. We do not want to be in Canva. Nope, there we go. So I've moved over to the cards into considering. You can see that we can really only pick 65 cards in any given deck, and especially if you've got ramp, then you're really looking at like 55 cards. So we could only take 1/5 of these, and ultimately it was just too many. So, putting some sort of 1-drop into play off Nahar doesn't really feel that good. Putting an Alabaster Host Intercessor into play off of Nahar, totally different story. Putting a Spark Tongue Dragon into play, there's just a lot of really good things we can do. So let's start first with going and finding some of the cards that we know we're going to play. And one of those was our Protection Suite. We're going to play Angelic Renewal. And I think this is really crucial to our game plan. And actually, you know what we need to do? We need to copy this with the tags. Yeah, we need to copy this with the tags. Let's see. So we'll go back to the original one. Go here, bulk edit. Let's take all these over here. Bulk edit. Main deck. Or actually, we'll do considering. There we go. And now we've got all of our tags. Hey, Puzzlebox, how you doing? Prototype. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Puzzle, because when I was first doing this build, I was trying to remember what that mechanic was called, and I couldn't find it, and I was looking through sets, and I think I just missed it. So I appreciate the reminder on that. Yeah, let's look at Prototype really quick, because that was something I had intended to include in here, but just never ultimately. Oh, see, this is sick. We can't. I don't know. Can you though? You can cast this spell with a different. So this thing's size. Let's take a look here at the rulings. Casting a prototype spell isn't the same thing as casting for an alternative cost. I don't know that works, right? Because in this case we have it's a 6/4, and we're putting it into play, and I think it's reading that it's a 6/4. Isn't that correct? Because we can cast it as this different type. Whoops, I meant the modular. Saw you had some modular creatures. Oh, yeah, for sure. So modular was another thing we checked out for this build. And modular is pretty cool because there's 0/0s. Another one, too, is phantom creatures, like Phantom Flock is a 5-mana 3/3 flying that when it gets damaged, it just takes counters off of it. So there's some cool synergy there. The problem I found with modular is that I had to bend the deck in a way that wasn't really favorable. But for those of you who are watching this right now, know that Puzzlebox, the person leaving the comments right now, is the builder of that Liara Portier deck, which is a really cool deck in of itself, and it has a similar kind of approach in some ways, and so make sure to check that out. It's definitely cool. That deck really does like these colorless cards because the colorless cards are discounted by Liara based on the number of attackers. So modular works really well there too. But back to this, we have the protection spells. So let's bring all of these into the main deck here, because all of these are still cards that I want. Nahar is so core to our game plan that we are going to lean very heavily into protecting Nahar. It is of paramount importance that we have Nahar in play and that we protect Nahar so that Nahar can continue to get triggers and so that we aren't fully locked in to just casting our creatures, which we kind of don't want to be doing. I think we're going to have the ability to because we're going to ramp well, but yeah. Moonlit Strider, like that. This is a deck where I've talked a little bit about this in Discord, but the Honor Guards I think are actually going to be really good because in decks that want to protect the Queen strategy, cards like Benevolent Bodyguard, Standard Bearer, Coalition Honor Guard, Crimson Acolyte, Obsidian Acolyte, Angelic Renewal. These cards that are like onboard protection, even Moonlit Strider here too. These cards that are onboard protection allow us to run our commander out, and really we're only fearing like counter spells at that point. And so I think that's a really good slot for us. So we've got 14 of those. Have a couple of creatures. We could play the Standard Bearer too. The only thing with these Standard Bearer effects is that it's when any opponent plays them. So they have an effect on the game state that is interesting. There are certain things that people can still combo with, and in those cases, the Standard Bearers are sort of weird because it puts the responsibility on the Standard Bearer player, who's not an opponent, to deal with those combo problems. And so the combo I'm talking about is Ghostly Flicker. If they're doing a Ghostly Flicker combo, it only targets your creatures, the Ghostly Flicker, so it can't legally target the Standard Bearer, so it doesn't interrupt it, which means that if anybody tries to kill or interact with those creatures on the stack, they have to kill Standard Bearer first, which is a problem because we don't want to protect the Ghostly Flicker. That's scary, right? However, it's really just Ghostly Flicker, and I think it's mainly just Ghostly Flicker and probably First Day of Class combo that this kind of protects, actually. It kind of like acts like protection for them, and we don't like that. It does, however, work with Freed from the Real. It works with Tidal Bore combo because the Tidal Bore has to target the Standard Bearer, not the creature that it's untapping, the land creature. The Scouts, I think that's a good name for them. And it does stop, so it stops Freed from the Real. It's also going to stop Banishing Knack because they won't be able to apply the Banishing Knack to their creature. They'll have to do it to the Standard Bearer. At least I'm pretty sure that's the case because the Standard Bearer is, let me look this up here. I think Banishing Knack is targeting your creatures. Target creature gains. Yeah, okay, so this does stop this as well, which is good. So, but we're going to be a bit greedy in this. We care about our thing. We're doing our thing, and we're trying to kill them. And these are going to act as protecting our Shadowfax as well as stopping most combos while sort of protecting on accident like two combo, what is it, 2 combo lines? Yeah, First Day of Class and Ghostly Flicker. There might be more. First Day of Class, by the way, is a persist combo. So we're going to put this in here, and we'll try it out. This is just going to allow us to run it out there with a little bit less protection. I think that's really good. So we've got that in there. That's not changing. Our ramp package is the next one. This is one that we're definitely doing. We're going to move Arcane Signet in. Is there a way to move to the main deck for that's? I wish there was a code for this, or a little what's it called? Hotkey for it. We also had a Goblin Legionnaire, which we could include in here too. This is a card that I'm kind of interested in playing. It's removal, it's protection. It's also just kind of a thing that sits in play and can tag a combo creature. That 2 damage kills most combo creatures. So Buddha Dragon MTG, welcome. Glad to have you here. Let's hope this round goes better, Lil. That last video had so many options for the build. It did. And this is a great example of you need to choose a lane. Not always, but I think in this deck we do need to choose a lane. We need to decide whether we're going to maximize Nahar or whether we're going to have like this Boros good stuff. And actually, what I do want to show you all is something I posted in the Discord that was talking about what we learned from this. So I think it was under early access where I post, this is where I post notices of all the things that are coming. And I wrote this right here. So I approached today's build wary of committing fully to Shadowfax because it's Boros and we're not flush with ways to protect our 5-mana spell against a 2-mana counterspell. So because of this, we drifted into Boros good stuff with the idea of having a reasonable game plan outside of Shadowfax, and that this ultimately put tension on our limited slots, even after because I looked through a lot of cards, and it diluted the plan and just generally made it impossible to build. One of the things I do want to share with you, and hey Jeffrey Long, good to see you. Welcome to the live stream today. Nice to have you here. I also noted too that another nugget of learning is that in making Boros good stuff, using what I've learned about what white has to offer, I discovered that there looked to be a fairly robust standalone, a commander ambivalent selection of cards. Having done it now, I realize it's actually pretty sick and has me curious about other places where the pattern could be applied. So this is some of the stuff we're going to be focusing today. In conclusion, I remain confident in this. We want approximately 12 ramp spells. So let's do that first, and we'll come back to this as we go through this. Oops, sorry, getting all my stuff in order here. So approximately 12 ramp spells. So we'll get this in here. Mind Stone, Ornithopter of Paradise, Bonder's Ornament, Bronze Walrus is appealing to me because it's also something we can put into play off Shadowfax in a pinch. That's going to give us some ETB value. So we've got 10 there. We probably want a couple more. So let's do function, ramp, type, artifact. And I suppose, is there any reason to not do artifact? Like something like a navigator's orb? We'll do that. And I think in this deck, actually Beamtown Bootstick. This one's a little bit tough because with these kind of cards, they want to be alongside a cheap evasive creature, and we're not really going to have a lot of that. But we're definitely going to want rocks that can crack for mana. It's a horse, but it's not a horse god, which is interesting because Shadowfax is actually the child of Nahar in the story, which is a god. It is the horse of the god Arome. So we could do something like Boros Locket. The nice thing about these 3 mana rocks is that they take us into a turn 4 commander, just like a 3 mana rock would. But, oh yeah, we're going to want Everflowing Chalice. We could play Commander Sphere. We're just going to throw a bunch of these in. Felwar Stone, I think, is too frequently going to be a colorless producer. But I could be wrong. Let's throw that one in there. Fountain of Ichor is another one I like quite a lot too. Guardian Idol's good. Honored Heirloom we could play too. Lantern Revealing we have here is another way to generate value. Scry 1 on this could actually be quite good. And I think that is it. We could also consider like Sisay's Ring and Urgolem's Eye, mainly because these 2 cards that produce 2 colorless are going to really ensure that we can like recast our commander. Because if you do the math on it, like making 2 colorless with this is saying I can pay for the command tax when my commander dies. So pretty good. Oh, there's actually a Stone Retrieval unit. That one doesn't cast our commander though. Okay, so the options we have in here are the following. Hey Alex, good to see you, bud. We could cut things like Iron Mirror, Gold Mirror, even Ornithopter of Paradise. These cards are essentially going to like protect us from edicts. But edicts are frequently in this deck going to be sorcery speed, which means that if we play Shadowfax, attack, and we deploy our creature, we have 2 creatures in play, which means we can eat an edict with the creature we put into play. Because I think ultimately, like having Urgolem's Eye and Sisay's Ring just for start is more important than these Iron Mirror, Gold Mirror. Before, the idea with the Iron Mirror and the Gold Mirror and the Ornithopter was that we were going to be playing a lot of like support cards that like put counters on our things. And we might still do that with a couple of these and go kind of tall, but I don't think that's worth playing those creatures. So it does mean that our curve is going to be, it's kind of interesting. Generally, I like to have a balance of 2 mana rocks and 3 mana rocks. So we'll have the Felwar Stone and the Everflowing Chalice. Everflowing Chalice can be bigger than Sisay's Ring and Urgolem's Eye, or it can be smaller. I think that's a really good reason to play it. And then we'll probably play, like Honored Heirloom is pretty good here because we can, like, there's definitely a possibility that we just attack, we put a creature into play, and then we just hold a bunch of mana up because we don't need to play, you know, we might not need to play into, you know, play creatures out that turn. We can just hold up Honored Heirloom. But we could also play Commander Sphere or Mana Geode as a way to do that too. I think we are going to want to have just 1 piece of Graveyard Hate. So let's do that. And we'll put these in Considering for now. This one's also going to be in Considering. I think it's a cool card, but I just not necessarily certain that we need it in the deck. This deck is going to apply a lot of pressure through combat damage. Okay. So we've got those. let's bring in the reanimation spells, and we're going to bring in these 4. We're not going to bring in recommission. I don't think that recommission is going to have enough targets in this deck like it did before. There will be targets in some cases, but they have to be 3 or less. So I'm just maybe a little less convinced that that's important to the deck. Puzzlebox says, I think this deck will struggle with the same thing as Liara, people removing your commander the turn you cast it before you move to combat. I definitely try that build, try to build around that. Yeah, exactly. So whereas, so Liara is interesting in that Liara, I think we're going to play quite a bit more protection in this one than against Liara, than Liara will. Although I don't know exactly what your number is on that, but I think that's an insightful thing. We just want to be cautious of the fact that our commander is our queen. It is the thing that we need to protect, and we're going to need to play around that. Yeah. So a lot of these draw spells here are still cards we're going to play. So let's move these ones in. We've got Totem Guide Heartbeast, which is really cool because these cards are going to be put into play for free, and they're going to search up that protection that we need because they're going to look for auras. They can also find removal. Staunch Throne Guard is great, even though the vigilance isn't respected in this case. Shrine Steward, Custody Squire, Stirring Bard, all of the initiative and most of the Monarch stuff works here. So Jeffrey Long says God's Willing is a good protection spell. It is. You know, we aren't using God's Willing because we have better stuff. If you look here, basically all of these here are things that I prefer over God's Willing. Like Moonlit Strider and Coalition Honor Guard are really cool because if people let us get our trigger, we put these into play and then we have protection. So Puzzle says Liara is currently on 7, which could honestly be too low. Yeah, I mean, if you're encountering that Liara is not surviving, then I think that's certainly something to consider. Because Liara is, again, it's funny, you have a deck that once Liara has been out, Liara doesn't matter so much because you're just producing all this value. But on that first cast, you do want it to survive and like do some stuff. It's a little bit like Murmuring Mystic, where you play it out and you're like, I need to hold on to this first cast. Once I make some birds, if it dies, I can just recast it, but I need to make some birds. Puzzle says 9 if you can't Pyro and Reb, which, yeah, I would say absolutely. Yeah. That was one of the observations here was that, look, if this gets countered, it hurts for sure. And I think one of the places this could be weak is that if the combo decks start to do what I think they should be doing, which is oftentimes countering aggro player commanders, right when they come out, then this will get punished for that. Currently, that's not happening very much. I'm not seeing that happen very much at all. They're focusing on protecting their thing and doing their thing. But if a Gretchen, like what you play, Puzzle, or a Tatiova just says, this comes out and they go counterspell, yeah, it hurts. So the Pyro and the Reb are going to be really important, and definitely want to play those. So these are going to go under protection as well. Luckily, these are also doing double duty as removal. I think that there's enough blue in the format again now. We definitely had a bit of an oscillation there where blue wasn't really seeing as much play, and now it's back to its normal shenanigans. And because of that, I think that these cards are, at least Pyro, are definitely cards you want to be considering here for your decks. Puzzle says, I've cast Daze on Dargo multiple times with Gretchen. It feels amazing. Yeah, I mean, that seems great. Like, now against Dargo, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times Dargo doesn't care about the counter spells. It just casts it for 2 more, like maybe they sack one more thing and then they cast it again because its cost reduction is during that turn. But like countering the Shadowfax certainly would be hardcore. Jeffrey says, have you thought of Ebony Horse to protect the commander when it's attacking? Let's take a look. I haven't. It's essentially a way to get the trigger while still being able to go to combat. I'm not too worried about it dying in combat. Puzzle says, that's true unless you daze it on turn 2. Dargo has all in. Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. If you daze Dargo on turn 2 after they played like a Lotus Petal and a Mog War Marshal or something, That's pretty heavy. So I don't think we're going to play Ebony Horse. I see where you're going with that. We definitely want to be dealing our combat damage. And I think in this deck, we are planning on being bigger on the board than everyone else. That's our gambit. That is what we are playing to. Okay, so we have some other cards here we can play too. I think Militia Bugler is probably going to be good. Look at the top 4. Oh, power 2 or less. Ooh, that might not work. Might not work. But we're definitely going to play Inspiring Overseer, Heliod's Pilgrim, Goblin Matron. You'll see why with Goblin Matron. And probably Airlift Chaplain. Mana value 3 or less doesn't really work, and just a Plains. Maybe not. Probably not this one here. But I do like Sky Scanner and Pilgrim's Eye. Those are good ones to play early. In our removal suite here, we're definitely going to play all of these. All of these were really good. Deathblade Elite, we can make it bigger and provoke things to death. Hunter Sliver has provoke as well. Crib Swap is tutorable with the Goblin Matron, which is great. So we'll play that one. We have the Lowland Tracker here, which is the 5-mana 2/2 first strike provoke. Great card for this deck. Sparktongue Dragon's really cool because we can put this into play, pay 3 and kill something. And then we have a flying creature. And then, of course, Alabaster Host Intercessor is very strong in this deck as either a Planescycler that we can reanimate or a card that we just put into play uncounterably to kill somebody's commander. We have some of these cards here, like Bassary's Acolyte, Gavany Silversmith, and Relief Captain. I really like these cards. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 3 other creatures. You have to have enough creatures to put these on to do it. As long as you had Nahar and Gavany Silversmith, for example, you put 1 counter on each one. Relief Captain, you'd have to have 3, but it's also the highest value of all of them. So I like these cards quite a lot. They're going to amplify our threats, make them bigger. We can protect them. And, we have Clay here lurking in chat. Out of context, we talked about the Flag Bearers this morning. Any more legitimacy there? Yeah, you caught me just in time here, Clay. We brought them in. We talked about this briefly at the beginning. We have Coalition Honor Guard and we have Standard Bearer. And the rationale for that is that of the combos that are currently being played, the kinds of combos that are currently being played have moved a little bit away from... Well, okay, we should put it this way. These cards are going to protect other people's Ghostly Flicker combos, and they are going to harm everything else, basically. And so while they're doing that, though, they're also protecting our commander. We have Monkey Samba. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before, so glad to have you here and hope you're having a great day. So the Standard Bearers, I think, are good enough here because we are commander-centric enough that we kind of want to ramp. We want to play one of these out. We can play Shadowfax, and then we have that protection on board. So we're going to take the Gambit. Let's try it out and see how that works. We're going to go through the obvious ones that I like. Irregular Cohort is another one that I like a lot. We can tutor this up with Mog War Marshal, as well as, I think, another thing that we have. It also has haste. So this is a card that we can just cast, and they both have haste because they're both horses. But it's basically like tutorable bodies. It's like an army in a can. We might also play Beetleback Chieftain, or the 3/1 with haste that makes a Phyrexian Goblin. We could play those too, just so we have a couple ways to tutor up like a board in a bottle. And all of those can be flipped into play off Nahar, which is pretty darn cool. We're definitely playing Soul of Migration. We're definitely playing Ivory Giant. The Toucaneers is really good. We're definitely playing this one too, even though it doesn't get the Myriad trigger off the start. I'm confident that Pricklebore is where we want to be. Flipping a 5-power first striker into play with haste is good. Farragax Giant is going to be a sweet card. I think the politics around this are going to be really strong because you choose an opponent. So you're going to choose the opponent you can make the best deal with. And that best deal, ideally, is you pick the person who can take 5. And you nug everybody for 5. I think that's what we're going to try and do with this. Goliath Paladin, flipping initiative into play with a 3/6 vigilance. Obviously, you want to have vigilance when you cast it. Here's the card I'm talking about, Mere Kinsmith. Mere Kinsmith, you search for a mirror card, which means that it doesn't say mere creature card, which means you can find all sorts of tribal stuff with this. So we're definitely going to play that. We can flip that in for free. Guardian of the Guild Pact is a 2/3. This is an amazing card. Clay says, with all the creatures in the list, how do you feel about including munitions? Makeshift munitions. So makeshift munitions probably won't find its way into this because this is actually going to be, while it will be creature dense, we're not actually going to have a lot of our creatures are going to be high value. Let's keep that one in mind. I hadn't had that one in the original list because even though we went wide, it's definitely something to consider. Like one of the nice things about makeshift munitions is that like the fail state on it is that you like yeet your entire board and all of your rocks at somebody's face. It's pretty good. But in this case, it'll depend on how many creature token makers we play, and that's going to be the question. So yeah, secondary use for the myriad tokens. That's a good point too. We'll definitely keep that in mind. Witty Roastmaster is going to go in the deck. Stormcaller is great in the deck. Porcelain Legionnaire is good in the deck. As just like, we're basically going to go a little bit lower on the creatures that we can play early, knowing that we can also flip them into play. Militia Bugler is no longer going to work, so let's remove this one because we're not going to have enough 2-power stuff. Now, Court Street Denizen is going to be great because it's going to allow us to get in and attack people. So, all right, now let's go to the O Mountain, O Plains, or O Plains, parentheses, and then we're going to say O Cycling type creature. Okay, so we've got the Intercessor. We're going to play the Crag Smasher Yeti. We're going to play the Oliphant, and we're going to play the Noble Templar. All of these are like really big creatures that we can flip into play that are going to be great attackers. We could also play the Furnace Host Charger. It is 5 power, which means that with the Crag Smasher Yeti or the Oliphant or 2+1/+1 counters, we can flip it into play off of Nahar, or we can just cast it. Let's try it. Let's try it. Because we do want to do this reanimation thing as well. Let's also get Beetleback Chieftain in here. This is the 2/2 for 4 that makes 2 1/1s. And then we also have, so let's do type Goblin, type Phyrexian, rarity common. It's already rarity common, it knows that. Chimney Rabble. This is great. It already has haste, which is really cool. So we can tutor this up and flip this into play. So we'll have a package of go wide stuff, which I like. And then we're going to have these cycling creatures here. Now let's actually go back really quick here and let's do O cycling, and we'll do not plains and not mountain, so that why did that not work? We'll do like this. Oh, we don't want the or. Okay, cool, there we go. So we could also look into stuff like this, which is kind of interesting. Like, I like the idea that we actually have like a source of card draw potentially, with things like, this Granitic Titan does need to, Nahar needs to be pretty good to put this into play, or big to put this into play. We like the Imposing Vantasaur. This one's good too. We can play this. We're going to make 2 things not block. When we flip it into play, we only need 1 power to do it. And we can also cycle it to make something not block and then reanimate it, which will make 2 more things not block. So you can see a turn where you go like, cycle Quakefoot Cyclops, make thing not block, reanimate it with Breath of Life, 2 more things can't block, and then do our thing. That's pretty cool. And then we have cards like this, a Flying Vigilance 3/3. Cycling is just like, the reason I'm thinking about it is it's a way for us to draw cards in Boros, which traditionally has trouble with that. That Ceradon's kind of appealing too because it's only a 1-mana cycler, but I don't know. So we got 74 cards, and the funny thing is we're actually really, really close to being at our 100 cards here. This is Now we have all these. We have all of these lands that put themselves into the graveyard, and that was there for Scaretiller. And I don't know that Scaretiller is what we're trying to do anymore. Oh, evoke. And we have like Fault Grinder, which is kind of interesting. We can actually flip this into play off of Shadowfax. I keep saying Nahar, but Shadowfax. Which is pretty cool. We could destroy a land with this. We can also evoke it, which is pretty expensive. But I think I like that. It's big enough. It's a 4/4 trample. Yeah, I agree. And we have so many rocks that the untapped lands aren't that useful anymore. Before, the idea was that Scaretiller would be really good because you could put it into play, and because it attacked, you could flip lands into play like that. But that's not how it works. It needs to have been in play to do that. So, actually, you know, there was one more there. What about this Interflame Acolyte? We don't have Reckless Charge. I don't think that's going to play. We already have Haste on our commander. However, this one right here does buff up Shadowfax with Evoke. We're going to add this to considering. I don't think it's high impact enough, but we can come back to it. Draw, removal, lands. We'll have to come back to the lands. We've got the Wide, we've got the Cyclops, we've got the Imposing Vantasaur, and the Fault Grinder, all this protection. And we have 50 creatures in the deck, which is going to be, I think, a little bit too much. It's a lot too much. It's 10 too much at least. With all these creatures, we're definitely playing Impact Tremors. Cathar Commando could go in here too. Argavian Phalanx could be really, I think, important here too. You can see there's just a lot of big creatures in this game. So we're gonna play Cathar Commando. That is just a really good card. Okay, and it would be nice to have Belligerent Gust because the blood tokens can actually turn the cycling cards into draw, which is pretty sick. Oh, you know, the other one is Celebrants. This is a really good red card, and it's Falconwrath Celebrants. If we give him just one more power, the Shadowfax, we can actually play this and get blood tokens, which is going to be really important for the deck, while also playing a 4/4 Hasty Menace. So that's good. And this is also going to go into draw. Stirring Bard is draw as well. I think we already have that listed in there. Mere Kinsmith is draw. Shrine Steward is draw. I think that's already there. Imposing Vantasaur is draw. Quakefoot Cyclops is draw. Okay, now let's cut some of this chaff. Oh, we don't have Bronze Walrus and Ramp, do we? Oh, no, it is. It's there. Okay, good. Okay, that one can stay. The Court Street Denizen might not make it. I don't think it's going to make it. Goblin Legionnaire is probably not going to make it. I would like to have Inspiring Overseer. It's nice to draw off of that, but do I really want to flip this into play? I don't think so. It's a card you can just cast, which is nice. Deftblade Elite is starting to look a little bit weird, and so is Hunter Sliver, because we don't have a ton of ways to make them bigger. But the thing is that the ability to remove things repeatedly with Provoke is really important. They're just awkward. They're a little bit awkward. We'll revisit them if we need to. You can see we're not going to have a ton of removal. This is not our job. Our job is to apply pressure. And then once we have a huge board and people have allowed us to build this board in the service of applying pressure to those who need to die, then the gambit is to carry this value and all this board state into winning the game. So let's also cut, didn't we just add something kind of derpy? Yeah, we have this one here, can go. I really like the Scouting Hawk. This is just like a flying 1/1 that's going to ramp us. And there's actually a couple of other ramp creatures we could play too. Let's do O plains or O land. O land or O plains. And then we're going to do, we really want it to be on creatures. There's one other, there's a core card, 4 mana, that does this. Alex says, do we want something like Rally the Peasants to finish the game? I actually think that our creatures are just going to be so big that we just won't need that. But it is a thought. Yeah, before we had some lower curve stuff like this. This one, it's basically like a Vigilant Pilgrim's Eye, which is nowhere near as good as Pilgrim's Eye. We're looking for the 4 mana one. There's a 4 mana white creature, Core Cartographer. Puts a plains into battlefield tapped on a 2/2. So we can flip it into play. That's quite nice. We have Maria's Outrider, which is a card we wanted before too, because it's nugging everybody for 2 on ETB. There's Pilgrim of Ages, also searching for a land. So I guess the question is, like, are these better than Mana Rocks? And there could be a good argument for that. Like, our Pilgrim's Eye, I mean, these ones are not putting them into play, so maybe not. But let's put these in considering. We also have Pyroclastic Hellion, which again is hitting everybody for 2. I like these because it's a form of reach that is pretty powerful. So definitely something that we want to be keeping in mind. Skittering Surveyor, kind of the same thing. Oh, this is actually really good too. Sunblade Samurai, Channel. So we need to look at Channel as well. Wow. Ironhoof Boar. So it's giving a creature +3/+1 and trample while also having trample and haste itself. Pretty hard to put into play off Nahar. And also, yeah, we're not playing this one. Yeah. It's a nice idea, though. Okay. 113 cards. Now we need to start making cuts again. So something like Fault Grinder could probably go because, again, this is... Destroying a land is like, that's not our job. You know, it's like, leave that to the mid-range decks to play tech for lands. I like that it's uncounterable. That's pretty cool. So maybe just because the lands are such an important thing these days, but I don't know. I don't know. The Toucaneers are kind of interesting. I think they're really powerful. I mean, they're so good. It's like every turn we're just going to swing for 3 on the table. Fault Grinder's good. Ivory Giant. Which ones are like the worst ones here? Quakefoot Cyclops is starting to look maybe like that. Relief Captain, Moonlit. We probably have too many protection spells. I'm not going to lie. We could also say, you know, it might be that these creatures that ETB and do damage to everyone are not something we can afford because we don't have enough ways to give +1/+1. So let's actually see how much we have that gives counters. So let's just say power. Let's just say yeah, let's just say power, because really it's power that we're concerned about. So this one does. None of those do. These all give power. Hey, what's up, Chris? Good to see you. I would feel that this is a better value to pull a more aggro baseline with attack rather than use the creatures that ETB and deal damage to the field. Yeah. The thing is that they kind of do both. Like they're big and they do that, which appeals to me. It's like even more aggressive. But, you know, they are 4 power. Like these ones don't cycle. I think these ones might be a bridge too far because not only do we have to have another power, but they're not putting themselves into the graveyard for the reanimation. And the other thing with that is that when we have all these creatures that look for lands, we're fixing our mana and we're finding lands that we can use. So there's like, I don't know, these ones would be really cool to have there. I think they're very good. I don't know that it's going to make the cut. We have 100. We have 11 cards to cut. Belligerent Guest could probably go. Chris says they do a lot of value, but I think that with a low number of them in the deck, it might be a stretch. I would only do so if there were those with a good amount of flicker, and definitely consider for a sideboard, for a meta sideboard. I don't think they go in as a sideboard because we either want them or we don't. They're not serving a specific tech role, but they might be a specific build of the deck. There might be a build of this deck where you are really focusing on cards that like ETB and hit everybody for 2, and then playing, your Witty Roastmaster, Stormcaller Giant, or Stormcaller, that kind of stuff. I think it's just a different build of the deck, and it kind of looks back at what we were at before, which isn't necessarily wrong. We should also keep in mind that it's almost better in this deck to say we have a category for interaction, because while we don't have a ton of removal, we do actually have... we have Honor Guard, Ward of Lights, Standard Bearer, Chomano's Blessing, Benevolent Blessing, Stave Off, and Pyro and Reb to interact with people. So we're betting that our creatures are just bigger. I'm not sure that we need Cathar Commando. I don't know, like, in what world we actually need to destroy artifacts and enchantments. I know this card is staple. It's good. But, like, we have so many protection spells that can remove something from our commander, and a Pestilence is not frequently going to be big enough to stop us. If somebody Pestilences and then they use it, they're probably not killing our board because we have all of these thick toughness creatures. So they Pestilence the board, and then we kill them, and the Pestilence is gone. So I think Cathar Commando is going to go. We could play Rambunctious Mutt as another option. Although, Rambunctious Mutt would be an option. I think the Furnace Host Charger is going to go here as well because it's 5 power. So it's just not likely that we're going to be able to flip it into play. We have to do a lot to make that work. So we're at 108. We're actually making such good progress here. And that's even with the Sunblade Samurai, which is great. The Sunblade Samurai has extra things. It's you get a basic plains, you gain 2 life, and it's a 4/4 vigilance. So Chris says, I think that the build would work best with tons of ramp, ETB creatures with high power and toughness, or high toughness creatures. You say power and toughness, but it's toughness, to either cast or sneak attack. I think the ETB damage would definitely be a different build for Flicker. Yeah, yep, I agree. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going here. We could actually look into certain flickers here as well, because flickering Shadowfax, we're still going to get the attack trigger, unless they do it. Yeah, we're still actually going to get the attack trigger, and we can flicker the things that do have ETBs. So, like, what do we want to flicker here? Stormcaller, Scouting Hawk, Heliod's Pilgrim. We do want flickers. Damn. Do we have function flicker? We do. Yeah. Okay, so Ephemerate. We can actually put Icewind Stalwart into play. But I don't really like that. It's sorcery speed, basically. Like, flickering, I want to flicker in response to people. Oh, Otherworldly Journey's good. This is putting a +1/+1 counter on it. Cloud Shift is an option. We don't have Pegasus Guardian. This card is great. We can flip this into play off of Shadowfax, or we can flicker. Yeah, this is a good recommendation. I really like this one in particular. Chris says, I say nay. So the question is, which of these cards do we lose for these? It could be Apostle's Blessing. It could be Blacksmith Skill. Yeah, Blacksmith Skill can go. We'll put Ephemerate in here because we do have a lot of good ETBs. We have our Initiative, we have Celebrants, Faragax as well. We have the Quakefoot, we have all the Aura Tutors. Yeah, definitely good. question is, what from there? Is it impact tremors? This deck has like so many creatures that this is going to get like stupid amounts of value. So probably not. Lowland Tracker eats combo creatures. That's its job. It's a 2/2 first strike. Jeffrey says Stonehorn Dignitary is great if you run Flicker effects. God. Oh, I hate this card so much. I have like psychological damage from losing to this in 60 card over and over and over again as a poor board. You know, I play mid-range and I like black a lot in this format, but when I was playing Pauper, I played a lot of Boros. I played Boros Bully. I actually played Boros Bully in the first tournament the day after a friend of mine who is a YouTube creator in 60 card invented the deck. When he invented Boros Bully, I played it in Rags to Riches with him, and we both placed, I think he placed second, and I placed third or fourth. And the games that I lost were all the Stonehorn Dignitary. I really hate that card. It's very good. I don't know if it's what we need here. Like, our board is so strong that, like, it feels like we're slowing down the combat of, like, people who probably can't beat us anyways. But I might be wrong about that. Fault Grinder, I love it. I love it. I love it. And I don't think it's going to make it. I don't think it's going to make it. Imposing Vantasaur could be seen as kind of low value, but I think it's actually the same as some of these other ones. Chris says, not sure if they're there. Brazen Dwarf and Earth Cult Elemental. I don't think either of those are. You talking about Brazen Freebooter? I think you're talking about Brazen Freebooter. This Brazen Wolves is pretty cool, though, too, because you can flip it into play. It's a 4-power creature. There's Buccaneers as well that explore, and they have haste. We also have the Earth Cult Elemental. Jeez. Yeah, we're not playing this one. It's 6 power, so we can't like flip it into play. And the permanent part of this, if this said creature, it would be a totally different story, but permanent is not going to do it. ETB damage options, I see. Yep. Custody Squire is really nice because the things that we put into our graveyard are going to be good, so we can get them back. We can get back protection with this. So I think we want that. Palace Sentinels, we just need the Monarch. Like, there's no other way around it. We're going to need card draw. And what I'm also looking for is more ways to give our creatures power. So if you all would take a look, if you do have access to it, through Scryfall, I'm looking for more creatures like this that are going to ETB and put counters on our stuff. Something like, for example, what's the new one? It's backup, puts a counter and vigilance. Oh man, yeah, these are all... Sigiled Sentinel is the one I was thinking about. First Strike is an option too. All of these putting a counter on our commander is like pretty damn important and good, which is a bummer because I don't know if we have room for these. Ardent Elementalist, get back a spell that counters and can be flickered. We're not going to do that one because we're not going to have enough instants and sorceries, I think, to want it. Maybe Living Lightning, though. Living Lightning is when it dies, but it's 3 power instead. Yep, type creature enters +1/+1. I'm not going to look at that stuff super deep right now, but if you all find anything really juicy, particularly something that's like 3 power that puts maybe like 3 more power or 2 more power into play. Celebrity Fencer is interesting as a way to get bigger. It's just creatures entering the battlefield. The only problem with Celebrity Fencer is that if our opponents are smart, they'll kill it and block it right away before we can ever get the counters because it comes into play. Comes into play off of Shadowfax. These backup cards might be better than the go wide stuff. You know what I mean? They're all something we can put into play with Shadowfax. This one in particular does help us get in. Ah, crap. I think we do need to put these in here. They're pretty good. Vigilance. This one loots us twice right away, which is pretty sweet, and it's going to loot us again when we attack. So this card is technically draw 3, discard 3. No, sorry. Oh, it's actually worse. It's rummaging. So it's discard, draw, discard, draw, discard, draw, because we're going to probably attack with it the following turn and then it'll die. I don't know if I'm into this one. Gold Scale Aeronaut, though, and the Sigil. Yeah, okay. Backup Agent. Yeah. Now we're at 114 again. Damn it. Protection is probably where it needs to go down, but the funny thing is we just brought in more. Like we have the Pegasus Guardian. This is so good. Pegasus Guardian is like we free cast a 3/3 flying that's going to give us 1/1s when things die, and it's a flicker. And the flickering is cool because if we go to combat, somebody goes to kill our commander and we flicker it, then we're still going to get to attack and we're still going to get our trigger because Shadowfax has haste. Basri's Acolyte, we already have. That's a good one. Cloud Shift. Okay. Impact Tremors is good. It's just kind of funny. It's like sitting here, kind of like, what is this card? It's just like in a whole category of its own, I guess. And then we've got all these, which we're going to drop under power here. A little trick, by the way, you can do that I'm not doing here. But if you're the kind of person who has categories of stuff in your decks when you're tagging them, where it's crossing multiple categories, for example, you need to know what your creatures are, and you also need to know what your removal is. Alabaster Host Intercessor does both. And so when you're doing that, the way to do it is to have it in considering, and then take this up to creatures, and then take this into removal, and then bring it into the main deck. Because the way I just did it here, now I have to go back and move these in like this individually, and you can kind of miss stuff. So, okay, a couple of recommendations. Lieutenants of the Guard, Martyr Soul Squadron Captain. Search Party Captain. Squad Captain. So Squad Captain's kind of a funny one. Squad Captain it's each other creature. You need to have two other creatures in play. Well, you need to have, okay, so if Shadowfax puts this into play and you have nothing else, it comes in as a 3/3. If you have Shadowfax and one other creature, it comes in as a 4/4. It's not very good. I want this to be like a free 6/6, but I don't know. Yep, Clay, somebody did mention Gavany Silversmith. And then we have Search Party Captain is another option that we could look into. This card could be as cheap as... Actually, this card is 1 mana 2/2 draw card the turn after we cast Shadowfax and put a creature into play. So it is almost always going to be 1 mana. So that's pretty good. We could consider it. It might not make the cut. I don't know. This is in considering. Expedition Raptor. You know, it's funny. Enrage is kind of what we're talking about there. Ooh, Expedition Raptor is good. I really like that this flies. Oh, wow. Has to be a soldier, unfortunately. Ooh, that is good. Wow. I like this a lot. 3/5 flyer, we flip it into play. It's not going to get the trigger right away, but then the next time we attack, we can put a counter on whatever creatures we want. This is sick. Damn, very cool. There is Phantom Flock again, but I don't think that's what we're trying to do. There's this 2/4. You know, it's funny. This is actually in some ways kind of better than the other ones, even though they put more counters out, because it's a 2/4 flyer. Whereas these other ones, you just put them into play and it's like, here's my 3/2. But I don't know. Volpakeet will mutate onto, although this is only really 3 mana +1/+1 flying. No, that's not good enough. Okay. Chris says, I think the impact tremors work best if you have more go wide strategy. ETB creates tokens and anthems to buff the board. I think that may be leaning into potentially a gut deck spitballing. Yeah, for sure. I think, though, the thing with this deck, though, is we have 54 creatures, and we're probably going to end with somewhere north of 45. And that's like, it doesn't matter what we're doing at that point. Impact tremors is always going to do a ton of damage. It's a bad draw late game. It can be a bad draw late game. Late game, though, sometimes life totals are low, and having a card like this means that you're just able to push more damage. But this is definitely a card we want to play on turn 2, ideally. We've got Clay saying, the Anointer of Valor is exactly where you want to be. Great find. Yeah, I'm hyped about that. That card is really good in this deck. Like, what's cool here is that these creatures are huge. 5 toughness flyer? Ugh. Yeah, very good card. So the question is, like, these are all 2/3s and 3/2s. This has lifelink, and they put 2 counters down. We are actually putting less counters into play, but we have a bigger body with supply line cranes, and it has evasion, both of these. Oh, that's funny. Alex says he wants a color-shifted Gary, a Larry, light merchant of Asphodel. Would it drain still? Or would it like put +1/+1 counters equal to devotion on creatures you control or something? Chris says Empyrean Tactician, Angel of the Dawn. Okay, so Chris, those cards we're not playing because while they do buff power, they buff power and they buff power at a time that... while they do buff power and they do give us basically... keywords, we're not keeping the value. So like Empyrean Tactician is really where we want to be if we have a ton of tokens. And it might honestly be that these are not where we want to be. That's perfectly possible. I think that's just a different deck. We might be stretching too many places to be like, here's our cards that make power big. Here's all of our cards that cycle. Like this is a little bit lost in the sauce. I think we probably keep a regular cohort because we can tutor for it and because they're both hasty if we just cast them. And we can find this off of both Mir Kinsmith and off of Goblin Matron. So then the question is, would we prefer a 3/1 with haste that makes a 1/1? Or a 2/2 that makes 2 1/1s that this one won't be kept. Oh, we keep the cohort because the Mir Smith can't tutor for those. So we're just going to keep the cohort. Bunch of comments. We got Alex saying probably counters. Disciple of the Sun is good for recursion. So Disciple of the Sun is good for recursion if we have things that are at 3 CMC, and we're really low on that. If we look here, 3 CMC, we've gone down quite a bit, and a lot of our spells that are 3 CMC and under are not permanents. But what we're playing instead of that is we are playing one of my favorite cards, and that is... it's so hard to find what I'm looking for here. Where is it? Custody Squire. Custody Squire can get back our creatures and our enchantments. So this is a good one. This is probably way too deep of a section. We're probably going to have to cut here. Ward of Lights I like because it's interaction. We can cast it on our opponent's stuff. And we can cast it at sorcery speed. But I think we've identified that the flickers are really good here with some of these ETB things that we have, and the flicker doesn't stop Shadowfax from getting the trigger because we go to combat, they kill it, we flicker it instead, and then it comes back in and we still attack because it has haste. What's up, Bill? Good to have you here. I'd keep both and add the Fanatical Devotion to keep the horse alive and have some expendable guys. Expendable is not something we're going to be able to do, unfortunately. There's tension between expendable, buffing power, going wide, going tall, good ETBs. And Fanatical Devotion is too often going to be sacking a really important creature or like a really big creature that we worked to put into play to keep Shadowfax alive, which is also an important creature. So those cards are best when you are like a gut deck that has like all these weird 1/1s that don't do anything anyways. Other than block, you know, and maybe Edicts. The Obsidian and Crimson Acolyte are really strong. Really strong cards. They're just like on-board protection. And if we're doing these like counter things, we can make, you know, these are like unblockable for those against those decks. But again, we're going to have to figure out where the cuts come from. I love Apostle's Blessing, but it's going to have to go. And actually, let's, instead of doing tall, we're going to go, we're going to actually remove these tags just to keep things a little more simple. Okay, so 12. What's the math on that? Let's do some math. And this is through Aether Hub is the best way to go. Do we have any way to remove enchantments? We have auras to remove enchantments from our commander, but we're not going to play any enchantment removal. I'm not scared of any particular enchantments other than the combo ones, but we're not, that's like, our job is to beat that player down who's doing enchantment stuff. Like, this deck is going to be coming after the combo players. That's what we're up to. So we're basically saying, everybody else, you're going to have to use your stuff. Yeah, I'm scared of Oubliette, but we have like 19 protection spells. So maybe the idea is like, shame on you if you allow it to happen. Basilica Shepherd, 3 bodies, 1 with evasion, 2 with toxic. Yeah, Basilica Shepherd's great. We had that in the list before, and I'm glad that you're reminding me of it. So let's back out of this one here. Yeah, Basilica Shepherd. Shepherd, like herd, sheep herd. Is that actually the origin of the word? It totally is. Shepherd, like a sheep herder. Basilica Shepherd, yeah. You know, the 1/1s kind of suck here, but like, they can't even, you know what? Actually, the funny thing is these can't block. Like, who are we attacking with these? Are we buffing them up? We potentially could, but like, I don't know. Throw that in considering. Farragax Giant also creates a problem. Yep, we've got Farragax. That one is money. Money. Moonlit Strider could be one of these cards that is not good enough. I don't think this is very high impact if we flip it into play, even though it is onboard protection. This is going to go. It lost its one home that it ever might have had. Quakefoot Cyclops probably is a card that we're going to cut. I don't think we're super keen on that. Finn says Indoctrination Attendant, to return good ETB to hand would be more. I like Indoctrination Attendant. It's a really good body. It's a really good card. Alex says, now you're making me feel bad. Why is that? Why am I making him feel bad? I don't want to do that. Poor buddy lost his home. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. We do have a lot of power boosters, but like the thing is that we don't need to have like tokens for these cards to be good, right? Like these are going to put power on things. There's going to be lots of stuff to put power on, and they're going to be big, and they're going to get bigger, and we're going to protect them. Like this deck is going to put some really big stuff into play with haste. So 11 cards we need to cut. Maybe it's like the worst of these. This one's giving flying, which is actually quite good. The funny thing is the body is kind of bad. It's like a 2/3 flyer for 5. You back up for 1. It's like the other ones are like a lot better than that. So I mean the flying is good, but like this one is like a little closer to parity. 2/3 first strike's much more relevant. This doesn't give power. Why is this here? This is actually ramp. Bola Slinger's tapping down 2 things. It's also closer to parity. 2/2 for 4. It's putting power on something. It's going to tap down blockers. Sigiled Sentinel, the Vigilance, but again, it's like 3 mana for 2/2 that gives a counter. Pretty good. These are also going to work really good with our provoke creatures, which we probably want to go back into having. Mere Kinsmith. Why Mere Kinsmith? Yeah, maybe we need to be asking that again. Yeah, this is one of those holdouts. So Mere Kinsmith gets Crib Swap, so it's card draw. And it's just a 3/1 that we're running in. It's going to die in combat. It gets Crib Swap, and that's it right now. It gets Irregular Cohort. Is Irregular Cohort even good enough to justify its place in this list? Is this card just here because it's a horse? It is. Okay, all right. We're getting rid of these. We're no longer tutoring for weird stuff that's not value. I think that's a really good question, Chris, and I think that's what we needed to cut. Yeah, good call. Very good call. Man, it's so sick. We've got 35 lands, and how many of these things find lands for us too? Oliphant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 of our cycling creatures are finding us lands too. If you don't want stuff to die as easily in combat, Advanced Scout can help. It grants first strike. The thing is, I don't think we're gonna have trouble in combat. Yeah, I don't think we're going to play this. This is going back to the earlier build where we would be focused less on cheating things into play that are like really high value and more about just playing Boros good stuff. Not wrong, but it wasn't as exciting to me. It's kind of like this, okay? I generally don't want to compare commanders because each commander generally, if people are playing it, there's a reason they're playing it over something else that justifies it. But like if I'm doing like little stuff, if I'm like, cheating littler things into play, I'm going to play Liara, right? If we want to cheat big stuff into play, we play Shadowfax. That's the flavor difference between the two in terms of like our goals. Alex says, is Otherworldly Journey good enough? It's basically 4 times as much mana as Ephemerate. And flickering the commander doesn't really do anything that great, so the counter... You know what the problem with the Otherworldly Journey is, actually? It has nothing to do with any of that. It's twice as much... Oh, I see. Yeah, it's 4 times as much as Ephemerate, I guess. It's twice as much as a normal flicker. The problem with Otherworldly Journey is it's at end step, so we actually do lose our trigger. We cannot play this. Are there any other flickers? Function... Oh, Justicar's Portal. That one puts a counter on things, right? No, first strike. The reason we had Otherworldly Journey is because it puts a counter on things, but it's taking it out of combat. That's not good. We don't want that. The reason the flickers are okay instead of protection is because we're always still going to get Shadowfax's trigger and Shadowfax's haste. So we flicker it, and they before combat we do the thing, and then we have all these other ETBs that we can flicker. So yeah, good call on Otherworldly Journey. That one definitely should come out. We're really close. We're really close. We're doing great. I love this package here. I think this is going to be powerful. Aeronaut. I'm low on this card. It's only flying for 1 turn. It's just 1 counter. It's 5 mana. I don't know why this card is so bad. It could have been 4 mana, 2/3 that puts a counter on something and flying. Then it would have been a 3/4 flying. Like, it's just, it's below the curve. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Oh, you know what also gives power? Is the Oliphant. We do need... How many of the... Oh, yeah, the Anointer of Valor does power. It'd be nice to have an aura that we could tutor that would add power to... oh, you know, we could play Break Ties. Because you can reinforce with that. And it's... Yeah. Break Ties is insane. This card's so good. We don't care about artifacts or enchantments. We strictly don't. But... the Reinforce 1 sets this apart. So I think we're actually going to play this, and we might cut Honored Heirloom because we have 13, so we could go down to 12 because now we have the Core Cartographer. We need to cut 7 cards. Oof, I'm listening to some really good music right now, chat. If you all are looking for something like really, this is like baby making music. Not to make this R-rated, but this is good shit right here. Boombox Kid's like, groovy. Alex says Falconwrath Celebrant's pretty meh. I am high on Celebrant. And the reason is that it's actually like going to take these cycling cards and we're going to draw a card instead, I guess, is one way to look at it. I like that it's a 4/4 menace that's giving us a form of card filtering, and quite a bit of it. It's evasive, it's big. I think we're going to keep it for now, although we'll just have to see. Do we have any other suspend cards? The suspend cards tend to be expensive. Oh man, I love Gargadon. I love me some Gargadon. Oh man, it's so good. It's just like, it's such a meme to put this in this deck. It's like 7/5 trample haste though. Oh, heavy breath. This is like so far from what we're doing. It doesn't put itself into the graveyard. It's not getting us any like cards by doing it. And it's too big to put into play off of Shadowfax, but I like it, guys. You're seeing the casual in me. I want to play Gargadon. You know, the funny thing is the reason I'm thinking about these cards right now is because of Theoden. Theoden loves these suspend cards because it's just like a trigger at the beginning of your turn. They're just insane. Like all of these are like humans as well. So like Keldon Halberdier, you know, comes in, triggers double strike, comes in as a 4/1 first strike. Yeah, they're just insane. But not to get off topic, but yeah. Wow, that's really cool art on that card. Yeah, what are we doing here? We're not playing Gargadon. Come on, come on. Get back to the program. Faithless Looting. We're not going to do Faithless Looting. We are really down to just the best cards, aren't we? You know, we could go 34 lands with all these land cyclers, but I just feel like we need to hit our land drops. That's like pretty important. With all these power buffers, there's definitely a better reason to be playing like all the provoke cards as well. Like they're really, really good. Maybe Crib Swap is just like, yep. All right, this might seem weird to you guys, but I think we're cutting the best white removal spell Oh man, there's also that other one that makes. No, we don't want that one. Oh damn, these are all Deathblade Elite. So good. I forgot about Goblin Grappler. Crested Craghorn. This thing is so Chad. It's like hard to. I mean, the funny thing is, it's gonna provoke and then it's gonna die, right? Like, that's the same thing with Grappler. Like we have ways to make them bigger, but the difference is that Deathblade Elite can provoke and then prevent the damage. That's the difference. But this would be sweet. Thing is heavy. I think 34 is probably the correct number. We have big mana boys. Yeah, we do. But see, in that case, I might just cut a mana rock to play a 35th land. I've been leaning towards 35 lands in a lot of my decks lately. I just like consistency. And I think it serves me well when I'm playing. I think consistency is like the number of times I play games where people keep hands that just don't have enough lands and their deck is like dysfunctional because of it and their game plan is sketchy. I just don't like to mess with that. And that's why I'm like, I really am enjoying these land cycling cards that like, I'm going to be making a video on this. And actually, yeah, I think they're close. They're as close to staple as you can get in like maybe non-combo decks. And if you're in a combo deck, then you should be playing the blue ones. Bill J says, do you mind giving a small summary of what the deck is trying to do? That might be easy to pick the cards to cut. Yeah, so game plan is ramp, Shadowfax, protect, trigger. Is that good? Maybe Stormcaller is, you know, this one right here, this is a cool card, but it is nowhere as powerful as any of the other things we want to play. This is the old build. Like, this is such an interesting example, chat, of like something that I encounter a lot in these Let's builds, and I'm sure you encounter too, is that you build a version of the deck, and then when you start, you start building towards something different because you figure out what you actually want to be doing. And there are these like holdouts, there are these remnants that no longer make sense, but they're still there because you still think they're good. But then you realize like, oh, we've actually moved away from that. It's no longer what we're doing. And this is something I called, it's called this. It's a Ship of Theseus problem. The Ship of Theseus problem is that there's a ship that leaves from a port and it goes all the way around the world. And during the time that it's traveling around the world, it replaces its parts because things wear out over time. The mast goes, you know, maybe they need to get new cannons, they need to get new nets, they have to maybe repair some boats. And by the time they get back to that port that they left from after circumnavigating the globe, there's not a single part left on the deck that is the same as the boat was when it left. Maybe even the crew was completely replaced. And so the question is it still the same boat? And I actually think that a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's not the same boat. Stormcaller is a good example of that. It's not the same boat anymore. And that boat is a different boat. So we cut it. We have to be ruthless about that. Damn, hard to make cuts. You know, it might be like some of these cycling cards. Not the ones that give power, though. Like Imposing Vantasaur could go. This is just a 1-mana cycler. Toucaneers is really good. Like, if this card gets another attack in after its first one, it will have dealt 12 damage to the table. And we have lots of ways to protect it. This card is crazy good. It's like Impact Tremors. Oh, and it's really good with Impact Tremors too. Oh, there's other Myriad too, isn't there? No. Oh, chat. Oh. Tiamat's Fanatics is a great Boros aggressive card. Maybe the way... So one of the things I noticed when I was playtesting this is that with these... you know, you flip something into play, but you can also just cast spells. You can also just cast creatures. And Tiamat's Fanatics, you can just cast. So say it's like mid game, we have like 7 mana or something like that. We want to hold up protection. We've flipped some creatures into play. You know, we cast this and we hold up protection. Damn, we should play this. We should play this, and we can put it into play too off of Shadowfax in the case that we add power to it. Palace Sentinels. Staunch Throne Guard's a completely different story because this thing's got Monarch. We need the cards. It's unfortunate. Maybe the Palace Sentinels needs to stay. But we could maybe cut out of this power section. Maybe it's like the worst ones. Alex says, I'm looking at stickers. Oh, shit. No, don't do that. There's a few ETB creatures that give tickets. I think we're too far along, but it's a thought. Oh. It has to give 2 stickers, and it has to give 2 tickets and put stick. Yeah, okay, so this one doesn't work because it has to die. Yeah, none of these work because we really want to. Well, wait a second. Look at what we've done. All right, because you know what's funny is that some of these stickers change the power. Yeah. But it's 2. It's 2 to change the power. So the only time I would ever play the stickers is if it's gonna give us 2 tickets and immediately give us one of those, and all of these don't. This one gives 1. You can't even put a sticker because it's just 1. It's just useless. You get 1 ticket here, 1 ticket here. Yeah. Unfortunate. If there was something that was 2, then what we would be doing is trying to find we would try and find enough of these that altered the power. Oh, the funny thing is none of them do so in a way that we want. It needs to be 5 power. Okay, so 5-1. But again, then Shadowfax dies. 5-3, but that's 3 tickets. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole that we're gonna pass on for now. Argavian Phalanx is good. How many creatures do we have for this to be good? We can flip it in off of Shadowfax, but we really just want to free cast this. Or cast it for 1 or 2. If it's 2 mana, it's a 2 mana 4/4. That's good enough. So we would have to have how many creatures for that? It's 6, so we would have to have 4 creatures. This is going to be dead in hand. Let's cut that. There's a flicker one. Yeah, but it's just one ticket. Unless you can give me a name of something that I'm missing. So we probably have to cut something out of here. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Oh, no, support works with that. What about... There's a wall that gives all attacking creatures +1/+1. I would love to have Battle Screech. It's really good card. This is just like such a good Boros card, but it's like I don't think we want to tap our attackers down to make this army. Don't think that's what we want to do. We're looking for permanence too. So like, yeah, we do have Crashing Drawbridge. Devoted Paladin's great too, but Alex says, I'd call the deck Sticker Flicker and piss everyone off. Some people are upset about stickers. I am not. I don't really care so much. Oh, Goblin War Drums is heavy in this deck. They'll just get Menace forever. We're at the stage where we're cutting good cards, chat. Good cards have to go. I'd love to have Massive Raid in here too. That would be insane. Massive Raid is such a powerful card. Molten Monstrosity. Oh, we talked about that one. That one doesn't work here. Because it's, this one really needs to be like next to a Dargo or something for it to be good. Like we might get to the point where Shadowfax is like 5 or like 6 power maybe, but in that case, I mean maybe I'll put it in the sideboard. I'm worried about cards like these not being playable. Orcish Oriflame is nice because it's like passively and forever buffing up our attackers and thus our Shadowfax. We're just like permanents that do that is what we're looking for, that permanently give us that effect. A Sky Shaper to just end the game. This card right here is amazing in Theoden, by the way. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Chat, if you're hearing this now, I am excited about Theoden. Highly recommend you show up for that stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. This Swordsmith here is another example of a card we could play. We can flip it into play. It's giving a power buff and then Warded Battlements. Okay. That's as deep as we're going to go there. These are going to be sideboard cards that we may try and put in. We're basically going to be thinking about these cards as we play the deck, right? We just have to make 4 cuts, though, so let's do that. Efficiency-wise, are there any of these that we don't like? Nope, I like all of these. Pricklebore could go. I mean, it's just a beater. It's literally, that's all it's doing. It's just that I love the idea of flipping into play this big first striker. But maybe our stuff is just that good that it's okay that we don't have that. Yeah, we'll cut that one. The way these auras are going to work, these aura tutors is going to work, is a lot of times we'll flip one of these into play. On the stack, somebody's going to try and kill our commander, and we're going to hope that we have another piece of removal in hand because we have 16 of them in the deck. And really, these tutor for Show Manos and Benevolent, and that's it. How many auras do we have? 2 auras. Wow. We're slim, and we have 3 cards that find them. We have more cards that find auras than we have auras. Because we cut the Ward of Lights, which probably needs to come back in for that reason. We're a little too slim on that now. Back up to 17. Insane. Oh, you know what? Stirring Bard And Goliath Paladin, the Forge gives power. That's awesome. So if that's the case, then maybe we can cut from here. Maybe Sigiled Sentinel is like too low value, whereas the other ones are... Like, I like the Bullet Slinger, tapping things down more than I like Vigilance. Red Blast, a card we want to run. I think we do need to run Red Blast out of respect for the fact that our commander, we need to protect it. So yeah, I think that one's a must. The Heel Slasher, First Strike. Like, what's actually bigger than... like, I don't know. I just don't think First Strike is that valuable because our stuff is huge. Like, our stuff is so big. First Strike is like good for Shadowfax maybe, but we have a lot of other stuff that can attack that player. If there's going to be like one player maybe who has bigger stuff than us, and in that case, then maybe this isn't that good. We don't need this many of them. We're down to 2 cuts. 2 cuts, chat. We're going to get this one done in under 2 hours, which is great. Which is technically means that this is a 5-hour stream because we tried it last time. We could probably cut 1 rock here. We don't need all of these. Bronze Walrus. Pretty good card. But it's not going to be the thing we flip into play. So we're actually going to cut this. We have 1 more cut to make. We're at 40 creatures. So little removal, but we have interaction. We have interaction. We can flicker this. That's pretty spicy. I think this is good. This is good. This is a little low. This is a lot. This is a lot here. We could cut Cloud Shift. This is a lot, you know. Cloud Shift is probably the cut. Cloud Shift is the flickers that we're choosing to play are also ones that have creatures on them. Like Blessed Hippogriff is giving us evasion when we put it into play. The funny thing is if we use the... This one's kind of interesting. So it's going to give an attacking creature flying every turn, which would go on Shadowfax, but it doesn't do it the first time because it's whenever it attacks, and it's not, it skips that step. So it's like 1 mana indestructible, then we flip it into play, and it's like a 2/3 flyer. I like that it's 1 mana protection, but this is almost certainly, well, I guess it depends on how many ETBs we have. If we have a lot of ETBs, then Cloud Shift is better. We have a lot of creatures already, so we don't really need to worry about like cutting that. If we cut creatures, is okay. Ephemerate has set the bar so high for flicker value. If it does have a body or do something else, it's basically considered bad, which is crazy. Like Cloud Shift has so many more targets where it's like way better than Indestructible than Blessed Hippogriff. But Blessed Hippogriff doesn't get its trigger the first time, but it will the second and all the following times. And evasion is good. You know, if we give evasion to, I don't know, like Oliphant or like our commander doesn't need to attack like the player that we want the creature to go at. I think that the Blessed Hippogriff might have to go. Yeah, it's going to go. We did it, chat. 100 cards. This is a $26.69 deck. Most excellent. Break Ties is in here as well. Break Ties could have been the cut as well, actually. But I think we just have so much protection, and we do want lots of protection. But yeah, 69 cents. What's up? But I think that just having a single, where did it go? Break ties. We'll put it under removal. I don't usually do this where I stack it, but it's such a small category. Impact tremors doesn't have a category. That's fine. Okay, let us take it and play test it a little bit. Can't keep that. Oh, we have all these tap lands in the deck. Okay, hold on. We need to go back and get rid of these. 1. And what we want is Dwarven. Do we want Dwarven Mine? We're like mostly a white deck. We can't play Dwarven Mine. We'll do Idyllic Grange, which is going to be awesome with Shadowfax. This is also going to be another way to grant power. And we're going to have probably... $19 and $8. What's the balance looking like here? 65% of all of our symbols, 66%. Path of Ancestry is good here. Opal Palace. Oh, man. Opal Palace is great in this deck. Puts a counter. Oh, we have so many ways to add counters to things. It's not an issue, I think, now that I'm looking at it. Study Hall also goes in here because we actually don't have a ton of pips, so we can afford this kind of a thing. And these cards are really important in decks that where we don't have strong sources like card advantage or filtering. Study Hall, we could do Forge of Heroes too as another way to put counters on things. I think I'm okay with these effects. And we do want the cycling cards. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This would probably be untapped. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tap lands, and that's it, which is good. That's kind of, I wouldn't want to go too much more above that. We could do one more, but we have all this ramp. Okay, this is good. Let's do this. I like this. We are going to want to find a mountain. Let's, Jesus. We'll go Benevolent Bodyguard. We have something to flip into play, which is great. So we're just digging for a mountain now. Wow, a lot of built-in protection here. This is great. Let's go land, Angelic Renewal. End of turn, we need to find a mountain, so we'll cycle this. It's not a mountain. It's kind of annoying, but we can do other things. 1, 2, 3, cast Honored Heirloom. Cycle this at end step for just right now for a snow-covered mountain. Oh, we don't need snow-covered either, so the deck's cost is going to be even less. Snow-covered mountain there, and then we have, so we're just not doing anything here. Land, which is great. We'll play that. Now we resolve our commander. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shadowfax. Going to flip Staunch Throne Guard into play. And then end step, and we could presume that somebody is going to counter our commander. No, let's not do that. We're always going to be vulnerable to the counter spells. So let's just say that in this case we're not, because we do have to just bite the bullet on that. So we're going to do that. We got Idyllic Range. That's going to be great next turn. Make the Shadowfax big. We're going to go to our turn. And let's go Idyllic Grange, put a power on this. We're going to cast our Arcane Signet, tap this, sack this, draw a card. We want to see what we get. Sick. Okay. So we go Shadowfax attacks, and I think in this case somebody might try and kill it. It's possible. So we'll go Ephemerate, flickering this, but it'll still attack. This will go into exile here, and we're probably attacking with this, and we're going to put this into play and tag one of their creatures. And the cool thing is Angelic Renewal actually allows us to reuse that too. Actually, if somebody tried to kill it, we wouldn't need to Ephemerate. We would just use Angelic Renewal. Yeah, and we also have the Benevolent Bodyguard. So flip that into play, great. And we have these spells here. Draw a card. Wow. This is great. Turn 7. Swing. Anointer of Valor. Going to come in. We're going to swing with everything. If any of these die, oh, we actually didn't draw a card off last turn, so swing with all that. And then if anything were to die, we'd be able to Breath of Life it back, which is great. Like, this is very hard to get through. We have a lot of different protection here. The only thing we need is just we need to keep drawing creatures. It's like this one. Heavy breath. Yeah, I mean, we can use this right here, and we can go 1, 2, 3, put a counter on this. 1, 2, 3, put a counter on this. We don't even need to hold up Ephemerate because of Benevolent Bodyguard. So we're going to pay 1 more and add a counter to this. Oh, we actually want to add a counter to the commander. Like that. And then we're going to put this into play for free. Yeah, that's turn 8. We could have played safer and potentially hold up, you know, Honored Heirloom and Ephemerate, but I don't think that's necessary. We could assume that Shadowfax maybe dies or something, but we would just recast it. So now we are out of creatures to play with Shadowfax, and we have all this mana, which is kind of leading me to believe that we do actually need Palace Sentinels, because like we need to continue to get cards to be able to put into play off Shadowfax. Although, you know, this is enough to win the game. This right here is plenty, like all this here. It's plenty to do. So we probably sandbag the Felwar Stone for maybe a Falconwrath Celebrants or some other way to loot. Actually, I don't think there are that many. I think we have Network Terminal though, right? Do we have Network Terminal? Yeah, we do. Okay. So we do, I think we do want Palace Sentinels. We are going to have to share that card draw with other people, which is unfortunate, but I think that that's probably fine. Oh, Break Ties is not. What do we cut? Probably Power again, in all honesty. I really like that this is a 2/4. 2/4 flyer is like kind of better than a lot of the other ones. Relief Captain is support 3, which is probably the strongest of all of them. And Silversmith is probably the cut. Yeah. Let's cut Silversmith. I like this card, but it can go. All right, let's play test that. This is great. So we go draw for turn. Glad we got another plains. This, we're going to run out the Crimson. Actually, Angelic Renewal, because we're going to go 3 into Bonder's Ornament, and then we're going to go 4 into Shadowfax. Wow, and we're going to get some... Dude, Toucaneers early is so sick. These, yeah. Put it into play. Assume it doesn't get countered. We're going to flip the Toucaneers into play because we want to get that damage rolling like ASAP. There we go. And then... Wow, Shrine Steward for protection, or we could actually play both of these. I think at this point we do want to get our protection out, so we'll do the Crimson Acolyte. Or we could go... Yeah, the haste is super strong. We're going to hit like a truck. Pro red, pro this. But now we can't play anything else if we play this. I think it's actually better for us to go... attack, put Shrine Steward into play, and get Show Mano's Blessing first. And then go 1, 2 for the Crimson Acolyte, probably leaving up white. Oh no, we need to tap white for that. Let's see, 1, 2. Why are we tapping so much? 1, 2, yeah, okay. So we have 3 white mana. Sweet. And then go to our turn. Wow, yeah, Guardian of the Guild Pact is awesome too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cast Guardian. Attack, attack. Probably attack a combo player with this. Flip Anointer into play. It's heavy. This is sweet. And then we have these for... either pro red or for Chomanos on here. This is sweet. This is exactly what I was looking for. Turn 7, we're clapping so hard. Those Toucaneers have been going absolutely bananas. And now we're about to flip initiative into play. We're probably going to put the counters on Guardian and then buff up Shadowfax with Anointer. So we go attacks, 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 attacks. And we're going to go put this into play. Then we have the trigger here. And we're going to put this land into play too. 1, 2, 3 for a counter on Shadowfax. And then 1, 2, 3 to put a counter on... Copies don't bring the counters along with them, so we'll add the counter to the Guardian because this is like very hard to kill, except for commanders. This is sweet, very sweet, and this Angelic Renewal looks great. Like if they kill Shrine Steward or Goliath Paladin, we get value out of that. And so now we're gonna get we're actually gonna get a Plains off of the initiative. Next turn we're gonna lose the initiative. Because we're fully tapped out here. So we'll have to go get it back. But the cool thing is that we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we can keep up mana for our triggers. So 1, 2, 3 on the attack trigger. 1, 2, 3 to give another power to this. And then probably... I don't want to put power on this because this is already a kill target. So it's just going to die anyways. So we're going to give it to the Vigilance creature and swing. And we could have actually cast this and still held up the pro red. Okay, cycle this, draw. Probably play that out. Yeah, this is great. This is turn 9 and we're absolutely like throttling people with this sequence here. Assuming we didn't get countered, Not enough lands. Oh, this is where the land cycling is so nice. Oh, we don't have the duels in here. Hey, what's up, Jin Shooting Star? Show us the meaning of haste. Shadowfax. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, this is sweet. We're actually seeing the power of the cycling cards yet. We haven't seen any sort of reanimation stuff yet. Which is a form of card advantage. Because we're cycling these cards to get a land, and then later on we're reanimating them. The curve here is great too. We have Stirring Bar to find more. So what I'm talking about, chat. Okay, 1 mana. We're gonna go. We don't have anything to play on 2, so we're gonna cycle. Actually, we need to draw for turn. Wow, another rock. We're gonna cycle Oliphant. Jen says it's weird to read Shadowfax for me because in the Brazilian Portuguese, the version of them it was Scott. Okay, I'm not gonna try pronouncing that because Portuguese is such a different language than what I'm familiar with. Shadowfax. Shadowfax. That's a cool name. What does Shadowfax translate to? Is that it's like shadow? Oh, so Shadow is shadow and fax is just at the end of the name. Cool. So we're gonna go and get the dual land, which we don't have it. So I'm just gonna look up planes, but we need to add those to the deck so that we can tutor for them. So we're gonna get this, and then we'll go next turn. There's protection. Yeah, this is sweet. We're like online. It's the ancient Portuguese to shadow. Oh, huh. That's extra cool. And good to see you, by the way, Jen. It's been too long. It's good to have you here. We're gonna go Bonder's Ornament. This is a little bit slower, but like look at how well set up we are. We have initiative to add power, get us our extra lands. We have this source of pressure we can put into play. This is really, really good. We're gonna go, you know, unfortunately we can't play our protection early. And so I think like my temptation here is to go 1, 2, 1, 2. The key is to get protection into play, so or to ramp so that next turn we can play Chomanos when we play Shadowfax. So the way we would do that is we need to hit a land drop next turn. So let's do the higher upside, which is this into this, which is some protection. We could also just deploy the Toucaneers. That's also like turn 4 Toucaneers is great. I actually kind of like playing the Toucaneers. Sometimes you don't need to do your commander thing, right? We just play Toucaneers, hit the table for 9. Next turn, land. Wow, and it's the land we wanted. Alex says the final book of Cradle is coming out in 5 hours. Cradle of what? Cradle, what's the thing? And we're going to do 1, 2, 3 for Honored Heirloom. And then we're going to pay 4 for Court Cartographer, which is going to find us our planes, which is great because we now have mana to cast Shadowfax with Opal Palace and protect it with Chomanos. Swing for 9 again. Okay, yeah, this is awesome. So Opal Palace, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shadowfax, counter, attack. Maybe before combat, somebody tries to stop it, and we can go. Probably want to use state Chomanos. So we attack. We're going to flip Stirring Bard into play, which can't attack, but it is going to gain us the initiative for, we don't need mountains, we just need more plains because we have well, we can find a mountain. We'll find a mountain. That. Okay, and then we'll go to our next turn because this is a blocker. This is probably not attacking. We probably still have the initiative, so we'll do this and we'll put the counters on probably the Core Cartographer, because we want it to be a relevant card. We're going to play the Mountain, pay 1, 2 for Impact Tremors. I think in this turn, we're just going to go 1, 2 for the Crimson Acolyte so that we have protection, more protection. And then, or what we could do, actually we already have protection. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, draw off of the Bonder's Ornament, see if we can, oh yeah, that's why we do that. Because we want to flip something into play, right? Let's go to combat, flip this into play, 3/6 Vigilance. It's like kind of crazy. We can give Menace to something if we want. Probably don't need to though. And then we've got mana. Next turn, because this is Vigilant and these two are blocking, I don't think we lose it. So we probably go trap or goad somebody. And now we have this. So what we're going to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, tap this, draw, Palace Sentinels. This is so fun, chat. I love this. I love this. This is great. Like Toucaneer's probably died by now, you know, just in all honesty. Flip this into play, gain the Monarch. Yeah. And we'll probably want to have this in play as well. And we have, or actually what we could do is, yeah, we'll play this and then we'll have 2 white for protection. We're going to draw a card at end step. That's a pretty good one. We probably lose the initiative somehow here, so we'll draw, play the plains. We could also sandbag the plains. We're going to go get the initiative. We're going to get the initiative with this while we attack. So we'll go attack with this, put this silly blade dude into play, or actually we draw again. 1, 2, 3, 4, draw. Okay. Put this into play. And then I think we're not going to want to put this into play with Shadowfax because we don't want it to be attacking unless we have something to kill with it. We get the initiative and the Monarch. So we're going to go draw a card, I think. Yep. And then we're drawing a card off the Monarch. And we're going to cycle that Secluded Step at end step. Sick. And then this time around, I think it was harder for them to hit. So we're going to hit the Throne of the Dead 3. Team Hats Fanatics. That's a very busted card to hit off of Throne of the Dead 3. Did I mention that this deck is really good with the initiative? Like, look at this. Yeah. I don't know which one of these is better. Probably this one. Yeah, almost certainly. This is turn 9. And we are destroying right now. Tiamat's Fanatics also pretty good because now, actually, this is probably what we want, even though this is, like, which one represents more damage? Because we're going to do this on upkeep. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, holding up 1 means we can buff 3 things power. Whereas this is going to crack in for 7. And it'll continue. Yeah, we put Tiamat's Fanatics in. 1, 2, 3. Bottom of the library, shuffle, draw for turn, and untap. Wow. Yeah, this is disgusting. We go 1, 2, 3, Witty Roastmaster. And then when we attack, we're going to put Spark Tongue Dragon into play. And we're going to pay the 3 to kill something. And we're going to pay 1, 2, 3 to give a counter when we attack. Oh, wait, no, we had to choose. This one's on the bottom. So we don't have like this mana sink. We just have this, that, this here. Yeah. I think we've got a nice proof of concept here. There's probably like 5% that might change over time with this, but I like where we got to. This is really sweet. Man, Boros has got some cool stuff in this format. Jin says, I miss playing EDH. Yeah, well, I miss playing with you. We haven't played a whole lot together, but we got to get some games sometime. Maybe, I don't know if you've got a webcam situation you can do, but we'll have to do that. This is great. I'm happy with where we pivoted here. We're really leaning into what makes Shadowfax very good, which is cheating creatures into play. I think the only question is going to be how do we keep parity where we can continue to, you know, put cards into play and not feel like we're missing our triggers. Because if we start drawing dead, then the Shadowfax will start to feel bad. You know, we could, you know, maybe there's a world where we actually play more draw spells like the Search Party Captain, Roving Harper, Inspiring Overseer. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Now that we have Idyllic Grange and Opal Palace, we actually have a lot, and Forge of Heroes, we actually have a lot of ways to do what we want to do here. Now the next thing we need to add in here is type mountain, type plains, because we need the dual lands, both of these, which does add to our tap land count. So maybe with that we need to cut like Ash Barrens. Yeah, cut Ash Barrens and then add a mountain. How's that look in terms of production? Quite a bit. That's okay. That's okay. Like, look at this opening hand. That's nice too. This one, I might actually just suspend this right here on that turn 1. Yeah. Show me the meaning of haste. All right, we got the V2 here. We'll leave that as is. We went down to 34. Did we mean to go down to 34 lands? I thought we were going to be at 35. Oh, we added the Palace Sentinels, but we didn't add another land. I think 35 is important. We have a lot of, so if we look at it this way, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 35 feels right for a 5 mana commander. We really do want to hit our land drops. Because we have expensive stuff, right? 35 lands is probably correct. I'm not in the cut a land mood right now, Alex. I'm sorry. Deathblade Elite look kind of silly there, but again, we're like goldfishing, so we don't know what's on the table. And if we buff its power, then it becomes this like repeatable removal engine. So I think it's probably worth playing. You know, Break Ties doesn't need to be in the deck. It's just simply doesn't need to be here. It really is just like not our MO to be like worrying about this. Like, what are we blowing up? It's like it's so reactive and this deck is so proactive. It's like this deck is very focused on doing its thing, you know, and this is like holding up mana to like stop somebody else from something. I'm cutting it. It's disciplined thing to do. Yeah, this is good to go, chat. The mana cost is part of it, and Jin, one of the things that I liked about it is that it can add a power to our Shadowfax, which can be helpful for... Actually, how helpful is that? Crag Smasher, Tiamat's Fanatics, Sunblade Samurai... Wow, it's only a couple of creatures. Falconwrath Celebrant. It's a really small number of creatures that buffing the power is needed for. And so these are just more like force multipliers. They're just like buffing our... This is like... They're really high value. Like Basri's Acolyte is putting 5 power into play for 4. I do wonder if there's anything else that, you know, now that we have all these, and these are good, I like these a lot. But in all honesty, is there anything bigger that we want to be putting into play that like, that could come in for some of the sadder, you know, ones like Bolus Slinger? Bolus Slinger's 4 mana. Like we could just put something bigger into play, you know? like Prickle Boar. Love this card. It is 3 toughness. That is a thing. Quakefoot Cyclops is actually a thought. There's Imposing Vantasaur, which is 1 mana draw 1. It's nice. Fault Grinder. Fault Grinder is pretty sweet. The reason Fault Grinder is sweet is because we can actually reanimate this to do it again. And it's an uncounterable way to blow up a Gretchen land. And even though that is kind of a reactive thing to do, it's really good. You know? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's move this in. We're going to take the Bolas Slinger out. There, 13 is plenty. This is a lot. You know, this is good. And I think with that, we're done with this deck. Yeah, we're done. This is great. $28, chat. $28.75. Unfortunately, we did disrupt the magic number, but I think y'all will forgive me for that. Gonna make a little category here for pingers. You know, the other things we could be putting in here too, instead of Fault Grinder, if we don't want to care about that, is the you know, like some of these like big damage to everyone kinds of effects. That's another option. But I think I'm happy with this. I'm happy to just start playing with this right away. This is looking really good. Super stoked about it. So let's take a moment here to give you all a sneak peek at Friday's Let's Build. This is going to be Theoden, King of Rohan. And I'm pretty pumped about this. Theoden, King of Rohan here is the 3 mana 2/3. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield, target creature gains double strike. So a couple of things to pay attention to this is that you get the trigger right when it ETBs, which means that this is going to be a great deck for flicker protection for Theoden. It can grant double strike to anything. So, like, you know, double strike a Dargo that your opponent has that's not attacking you. Double strike a skeleton token that's a 6 power skeleton. Hit them for 12. So maybe some flash stuff, some flickers. This is a really cool deck. I'm going to be building a lot of it around 3/1s for 2. It's going to have a very low curve. And I'm super bullish on this. Both of these Boros commanders seem super powerful, very aggressive. This one actually gets to probably play more draw spells because of all of the creatures that are like flying 2/1s and stuff that are hitting for 4 with double strike. So this is great. Definitely excited about that. That is going to be on Friday. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, since I think I have another 10 minutes here that I can allocate to this, and something I want to chat with you all about is, for those of you sticking around, we'll get a little extra on top here. I have been experimenting with the cycling creatures a lot, particularly the new ones. Jen says also the super aggressive bodies benefit so much from double strike. Yeah, 2 mana 3/1s hitting for 6. It's a lot. So it's a ton. Like there's one, it's a Daring Skyjack, and it's a human. It's a 2 mana 3/1 that gets flying when it attacks with 2 other creatures. So it's like a 6/1, 6 power flyer. It's really powerful. There's a ton of really cool cards for that deck. You even get cards like Savannah Lions, which is just a 1 mana 2/1, or the Veteran Soldier, I think it is. It's a 1 mana 2/1. So it's very cool. It's a sweet deck. I'm stoked to share it with you all. Now, the thing that I want to talk about and is a new deck building pattern that I think about. Okay. And it's in black. Okay, so let's do Swamp Cycling. Okay. So, and this actually works in Rakdos too, but really it's any black X deck. And we're really seeing like how powerful those cycling cards are in the deck that we just worked on in Shadowfax, because we can do things with creatures in our graveyard. What these cards are doing here, let's just say color equals black, is so like multi-layered in its value structure. The sort of value ordering here is really high. On early turns, we're ensuring that we don't miss land drops. And I can't tell you how often I see people like lose the game because they were never relevant, because they never got to develop, because they just didn't hit their land drops. And if you're playing 34, 35 lands and you have these swamp cyclers, you are going to hit your land drops. Okay? The fact that they hit land types means that you're also fixing your mana in the early turns, which is huge because you can find duels with these. The other thing you're finding is you can find a swamp type card like Witch's Cottage. Yeah, Troll is super pushed. Turn 1, finding your duel. Turn 2, play the duel. Or just finding, you know, it's just strong. It's super strong. These cards are great bodies. They're a little bit more expensive than their body, but look at what they do. Particularly Gloomfang Mauler, Troll, and Twisted Abomination. I think Injector Crocodile falls off a little bit here because this death trigger is not very relevant. It's like having it's like a big body that's not going to die that often. So generally speaking, this is kind of just a 6 mana 5/5 vanilla, and it's just probably not going to die. But we got to think about these in terms of the context of the decks we're playing. When we're in black, we're almost always playing initiative, and Throne of the Dead 3 is something we have to think about. Creature density, things of that nature. Gloomfang Mauler, Troll of Khazad-dûm, and Twisted Abomination are quite likely to end the game if we flip them into Playoff Throne. These cards are huge. Twisted Abomination, without Throne of the Dead 3, is a Gurmag Angler that regenerates. Troll of Khazad-dûm basically can't be blocked. Gloomfang Mauler grants a form of evasion to a creature right when it comes down and buffs it. And it has Menace itself. It's a 5/5 Menace. These cards in the mid and late game in these black decks, a lot of black decks also want to produce a lot of mana. They want to have a lot of mana rocks. So you can cast these cards and they're your late game finishers. They go in line with Pestilence and Crypt Rats and Gary and all these other things, except that the difference is that these cards do something early. Gary sits in hand for a long time before you cast it, right? It's a great card. The initiative cards, you also have to kind of like be careful about when you deploy them. And that's not all, okay? So these cards have like all these layers of usefulness throughout different stages of the game. And then later on, you're casting them and you're able to just use them to win the game, okay? And I've already done this a couple of times. Now, how do we take this a step further, okay? Well, in black, we have these amazing spells that get creatures back from our graveyard, okay? And so let's take a look at a deck that I've fallen in love with. It's Thrall Parasite. Okay. This deck I have shifted over into using these cycling cards. You're effectively increasing the number of lands in your deck, which is amazing. So I've added all of them, Injector Crocodile included, although Injector Crocodile could be something else. But we have Injector Crocodile, Gloomfang Mauler, Twisted Abomination, and Troll. You can see that the top end of this deck is heavy, right? But look, we have 12 mana rocks, we have 34 lands, we have all these ways to hit land drops. How do we take these to the next level? It's with recursion. Reaping the Graves to get back in the late game at instant speed, like between 2 and 4, or maybe even more creatures from your graveyard, is incredibly high value. If you have cycling creatures in your hand, before you cast this, you can cycle them to find another land, and then Reaping the Graves them to get them back. That is such strong card advantage. If you have 2 creatures that you cycled into the graveyard, each one of those drew you a land, which is drawing a card, and then later on, you're just playing it. So then the card kind of reads like Gloomfang. Like if we just took Troll, it's 6 mana, you got a land, and you get it back and you can play them. It's uncounterable. Yeah, Jin's, you're pointing out it's uncounterable in a lot of ways. this in particular is what we want to be doing. You have 20 creatures in the deck, and you do need enough creatures to make this work to do this. And this is just going into our draw package, basically. This is just another good black draw spell that we want to be building around. And now that we've hit this critical mass where they printed a ton of these swamp cyclers into the format, and it seems like they're just going to keep printing these, because last set they printed them too. And it makes sense. These cards are amazing in draft. They eliminate the feel bad of having hands that don't work. You just go and find your land. But in our format, it's giving us this redundancy around Reaping the Graves. We're like, this is a control deck that doesn't care how fast it wins. It's just staying alive. And then when we get these cards back, we can start to turn the corner really hard. Not to mention the fact that if we're holding the initiative, we can flip these into play off of Throne. Troll is a 9/8 triple menace. Just beat people's face in with this big boy here. So sick. And then we have Wander in Death. This is another card that I've been sleeping on. I think that now that we're there, Wander in Death is really good. It's 3 mana, draw 2, and they're gonna be really good cards. Like, there aren't bad creatures in this deck. All the creatures are worth getting back, right? So this is better than Read the Bones, right? Like, Read the Bones is draw, scry 2, draw 2, but this is like getting back 2 things that we really want. And early game, if we need to, we can cycle it. We can just draw a card. Jin says they keep printing insane fixing. They do, and it's good because it's a big feel bad in Magic when you just play games that are non-games. And so these cycling cards, modal cards, adventure cards are just all these increasingly better sources of card advantage. They're staple to these cards. So I have Haunted Fengraf, Mortuary Mire, Witch's Cottage, Reaping the Graves, and Wander in Death, all as a package to reuse these effects. Because then what we do is we just say, okay, I'm just going to get these back later on. I'm just going to cycle them away, get my land, fix it, do my game plan. Mid-game, if you top deck them, you just cast them. And then later on, if you top deck one of these, like Reaping the Graves is very easy to draw 4 cards off of this by getting them back. Now, this package also works really well with the edicts. So Fleshbag and Chain, you'll notice that I've gone down on these in Thrall Parasite. Edicts have gotten a little bit worse in the format because the format as it matures, it's taking on a new texture. And that texture is more creature heavy. It's continually getting more and more creature heavy. And as it gets more creature heavy, it's harder to hit really good things off of these 2 cards. TPI, Gut, Abdel, none of those decks really care that much about these edicts, but we do need them, and they're good off Throne, and so we are playing those. But these Wander in Death, Reaping Graves effects allow us to reuse those as well. Another thing I've noticed too in black is that we have Dimir Houseguard. And I played a game just recently where I Wander in Death back a Dimir Houseguard and a Troll of Khazad-dûm. And I used Dimir Houseguard like twice in the game. The first thing I found with it was Arms of Hadar. The second thing I found with it was Pestilence. So being able to reuse your Transmute card, this is all self-contained in black, by the way. What do these also get back? Well, you can also get back cards like Faceless Butcher. Just great card. Like, we love this. This is an awesome card. There's so much good stuff to get back here that basically I think this is something that I'm going to be building into almost all of my Black X decks moving forward, is that like the creature quality is very high in black. We have the best recursion in the game to get things back into our hand. And we should be using that. It might even be correct to look at this draw suite here and say, okay, maybe Succumb to Temptation isn't good enough. Maybe we want to have one more of these, right? Maybe, Blood Pact or something. We just, like, this doesn't lose us life either. It's very good. And the cycling can be done at any time. I really like these. I've even noticed that with these Swamp Cyclers, I'll do it at end of turn when I don't have anything else to do. It's amazing. So highly recommend you look into doing this kind of stuff. Jin Shooting Star says doesn't like treasures. Yeah, I hear you on treasures. They're pretty good. I know that in EDH and in cEDH they're more problematic in that they're attached to cards that produce too many of them. But yeah, it's fine. Alex says, do you like Thrall or Golem better? That's a great question. I actually don't have a preference between the two. They're both delicious mono black goodness. They're very different ends of the spectrum. Thrall Parasite is so grindy, and it's not really in a hurry to win anytime soon. It has a lot more tech in it. Like we have look at all these sweepers. I mean, 6 sweepers. This is in the sideboard, by the way. This is another one that you can play, Unsealed Necropolis. They're just really different vibes. Like this is just a very slow, purposeful, grindy deck. That's like trying to be the least scary thing at the table while it accrues value, establishes a board, and contains players doing degenerate things. If we take a look at Golem, I also love Golem, and I actually have both of these assembled in paper, so it's pretty hard to choose between the two. I just don't think I can. Let's go and look at Golem. Where is Golem? Do I have the V2? Okay, yeah, Golem V2 here. Alex says, I like that Mystic Sanctuary spamming and Transmutant blue. Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about like the fact that we just got 3, we're getting like 3 more Island Cyclers. This is nuts. Yeah, Tidal Terror, Shoreline Ranger. There's going to be 1 more that we get. Going to make Tatiova deck so disgustingly good. Yeah, those are good too. Really, Witch's Cottage and Mystic Sanctuary are kind of the best of those lands to bring in. But like I was even looking at Cardur. I was talking with Mizu-san about Cardur Doomscourge, and when you're in 2 colors, you can play so many more of these cycling cards. So if you're in 2 colors, you can actually play even more of these creature cyclers, and then these recursion spells become even more powerful. And so in that deck, you can find Dwarven Mine, which produces a 1/1, which you can sack with Deadly Dispute, Village Rites, things like that. So that's pretty strong too. Jen says they make the price of multicolored decks non-existent. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yep, and I think that there should be a cost to play more colors. Yeah, that's fair. So let's take a look at Golem. Yeah, like you can even see Golem. I've organized the deck in a different way, which is 1 mana value, 2 mana value, 3 mana value, 4. Because the mana curve in this deck is really important. We want lots of cheap creatures. Now Golem, we should take a look at this, because Golem is a complicated and weird card that it's difficult to master. I think this is a deck that I still have a lot of growth to do with. It tempts when it leaves the battlefield, which I want to point out is like the coolest flavor ever, because Golem can never be the ring bearer. And so Golem secretly reads unblockable and prevent all damage done to target player by creatures without flying, because nobody wants to swing into Golem and tempt and progress me through tempt. Nobody wants to do that. So when you play Golem, people just don't swing at you, which is pretty sweet. When you swing, people don't want to block because they don't want to like lose their creature and allow you to tempt. And the whole build of this deck is with the goal of eventually getting to the 4th stage of the ring, which if you don't know what those are, let's take a look at them. What? We don't have the ring in here yet? Huh, we don't have the ring yet. Anyways, the ring has 4 stages. The first one is the creature becomes legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, which is why we focus so much on 1-drops here. And there's some really good ones, okay? Like, if you give unblockable to Night Market Lookout, Thornbow Archer, or Pulse Tracker, these cards hit like a truck, and they continue to do so for the rest of the game because they're just a 1/1. Nobody wants to kill them, but they're hitting for 4 every time they swing, and they're not blockable, except for by 0 power creatures. And the 3rd stage of the ring says if a creature blocks one of our ring bearers, so say they have like a pneumatic wall and they block, they have to sacrifice it at the end of combat. So these cards are really strong. And then there's a loot on the second stage. And the fourth stage is the one we're really excited about to pair with Pulse Tracker, Thornbow Archer, Night Market Lookout. And that is, and even Okiba Reckoner Raid. And that is every time you hit somebody, everybody loses 3 except for you. So this deck is sweet. It's so aggressive. It's fairly grindy. And its threats are so individually meaningless looking. And you have so many of them, 37 creatures, that people just like, it's hard to justify removal on these things. It's really hard to justify removal on them. Alex says, I wish I knew how that felt not being swung at. Yeah, you like to play combo decks, and so you get the beatings, and whether you're a good person or not, you deserve it because you're playing combo. Jin Shooting Star says Tempt looks like a very promising mechanic. It's not a token; it is an emblem. That's right. I wouldn't even say it's promising. It's very good. It's like I've won 2 out of my 4 games with this deck so far. And then you can use Ninjutsu to bring back Golem. You get unblockable creatures to buff up. It's just sweet. And we just got a new card, Nasty End, which is insane in this deck. It's 2 mana, draw 3 when you sack Golem. But the other thing is that the Ring Bearer becomes legendary, so you can sack the Ring Bearer to draw 3 as well. So very cool deck. I'm enjoying it a lot. 36 lands, because we have no ramp. There's no ramp in it at all. We get to play my favorite pet card of all time. And the fundamental of this is that we're playing all these Grave Flicker effects and all of these sacrifices, okay? And this is so sick together. Like, Golem is so strong. You know, you like go to combat, hit somebody with Golem. Second main, play a Grave Flicker on Golem. Nobody's going to kill it, right? Because like they're just going to tempt you. And then you play K-Dead, and it comes back into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. You get a 3/1 regenerate. It's so cool. This is a bit of a masterpiece. I'm not going to toot my horn too much on this one. I actually worked with Derek on this, and a lot of the improvements I made were kind of after that. But I really love this deck. It's sweet with the initiative. We have a lot of good creatures to flip into play. It does the same thing Rilsa and Passageway Seer does, where it's like all these aggressive creatures that just hit over and over and over again. And it's super spicy. You get Ninjutsu. Yeah, very cool. So definitely a deck that I recommend you try playing. It's sweet. It's super fun and very powerful. So yeah. So different vibe than Thrall. I love this deck. I love Thrall. I love Passageway Seer. I love Mono Black. I love Lamp. I love Lamp. Black is Lamp. So I don't know how we're gonna make room for Nasty End, but it will be in the deck. It probably comes in for like Costly Plunder. Yeah, it comes in for Costly Plunder. We probably still want Costly Plunder in the deck, so we might pull something else to make room for it. But we'll pull Costly Plunder and put in Nasty End. So we'll do draw, sacrificers, main deck. Like that. So yeah, but the main thing here that I really wanted to share with you guys that I thought was that's kind of a high value like realization I had is that these recursion effects paired with these land cyclers is so damn good in black. Play them in black. You're often ramping hard anyways. You want to hit your land drops. These are modally so strong. And we haven't really even talked about the fact that you can like Witch's Cottage a Gary back on top, you know, with this. Like, I mean, there's so many crazy things you can do here. Like, you can go Gloomfang Mauler, Swamp Cycle for Witch's Cottage, put Gary on top, and then complete the initiative in combat and flip Gary into play. Sick. Alex says, something I like about a cPDH is that there's always deck updates to do. There's just more stuff being added. Yeah, totally. One of the other things that we're going to be working on here at some point is that I'm not happy with the creature base in Mayhem Devil. And we're going to be revisiting Mayhem Devil to make this more aggressive. And because now we have Sticky Fingers and we have Beamtown Beatstick, and then, you know, we have 5 different ways, and really 6 with Shiny Impetus. We can put this on our creatures. ways to like recursively make treasure, I think this deck needs to have more of this low curve black vibe going on in it. I think that this low curve black creatures that I started building when I first built Passageways, or the second build of Passageways here, and then Golem, and then I saw Loyal Subordinate is also kind of doing the same thing. I think this is increasingly like a staple part of playing black, is that you want to, and really of a lot of colors, you really want these cheap evasive creatures to like hit people. And what I find in this deck is that we have these bigger creatures that are more expensive. And what I'd rather was just a cheaper creature that I could play turn one, equip with, you know, with Sticky Fingers or Prying Blade or something like that, and just start generating treasures right away and applying pressure. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure exactly when that'll happen, but that's so much more important now that we have Mirkwood Bats. This card is like format changing. It's like off of the initiative. You can even go Stash to hit everybody for 2 because it's a create trigger. So it's like you can't interact with it. Pretty sick stuff here. So it might mean like going down a little bit on ramp, cutting some of this top end of like the Briarblade Adept, the probably Slum Reaper, because we maybe just want 3. I know these produce a lot of triggers, but like I really only want like 3 edicts these days. You know, cutting things like probably Bone Picker, it's just because it's not consistent enough to play on as an early drop. First Sphere Garganta could go, and just lowering the curve. Just want to lower the curve and get in with combat damage more frequently. And this is a deck that could also play the cycling creatures, right? Holy shit. We probably have too much draw, you know? Like we could cut some of this and just do like cut a land, add, you know, 4 creature cyclers. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff here. Maybe cut a little bit of rock ramp. Yeah. So anyways, there we go. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and it's been super fun getting all your suggestions. We made a fantastic deck together with Shadowfax. I like what we did, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have a deck where we failed the first time. We failed to construct a deck that we were happy with. We didn't finish it, and came back right away next week and today and just did it, and did it in the way that we learned would be better. And I really think that's a cool, and it just feels good to do it that way. It feels good to revisit something that didn't work and try a new hypothesis. And I'm excited to test it at some point this week. I never get to play enough Magic, but I do hope to be testing that one soon. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to do the easy things. Leave a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when Claire and I go live with unscheduled games. If you're interested in joining the Patreon and supporting content like this, and you want to see more cPDH content out in the world, this is the way to do it. We have a Patreon right here with 5 different patron levels, anything from a $2 a month all the way to $5, $10. We have a $20 and a $50 a month. The $10 a month is a great place to be, or the 2 in that sense, because this actually is just so high value. I've been posting the pre-lists before the show. So basically I'll do a little bit of work ahead of time, like Theoden. Everybody in the Patreon has access to the work that I'm doing on Theoden right now. They can see the cards I'm adding, and they can almost participate in the live stream ahead of time, which is super cool. Really increases your sense of ownership over the deck. The interfaces that you see me using right here surrounding, if you too want that, whether it's just for your own personal use, maybe you're hanging out with your friends in Discord, playing Dota like I am, and then you just have your face, you're like streaming essentially your Dota game while you're playing. You have that little box for your webcam, or whether you want to make content yourself and you don't want to pay the $50 to $100 for owned.gg for the interfaces there that are kind of static and like hard to work with. This is a great way to do it. I'll put your name in there. I'll switch the name out so that it matches yours. You can get your socials in there as well. And you'll get those files forever. So for $10 a month, even if you only did one month, you would get $50 to $100 worth of interfaces so that you can start making Magic content. That includes the OBS interfaces that I have for playing on Moxfield, which is super high value. All this stuff is custom. I make all this myself with graphic design stuff. You also get early access to recorded content that we edited. So Clay and I played 2 awesome games of cPDH this weekend. Those are going to be edited and delivered to the early access people a couple days in advance. So you'll get to see those. And of course, you always get us shouting out your name to the ether, telling everybody what a great person you are for supporting independent content like this and being a member of the community, contributing in that way. So that's that. Alex says, hit me up. I want to see that deck in action. Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, brother. I don't think there's anything else to do. So with that, Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you on the battlefield. Peace.